For those of you joining us, the Danville Town Council meeting will begin shortly.
Diane, can you hear me? Can you let IT know that I am on my phone awaiting to let me know when they fix the issue? Thank you very much, because I can't text while I'm on Zoom. Appreciate it.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Newell Einerich, Mayor of Danville. It is May 17th, Tuesday, 2022, and welcome to the Danville Town Council meeting. Our first order of business is to call the roll. Marie Sunseri, as our city clerk, will be calling the roll for this, and other items will be joined time to time by our town manager, Joe Calabrigo, our city attorney, Rob Ewing, and other staff. Marie, back to you.
Yes. Councilmember Fong.
Here.
Councilmember Morgan.
Here.
Councilmember Stepper.
Here.
Vice Mayor Storer.
Here.
And Mayor Arnerich.
Here.
All council members are present.
Great, thank you. And now we have an announcement. I'm going to go back to Marie Sunseri about our meetings, which are held virtually. Marie?
Yes, this meeting is being held on Zoom only, and any written comments will be made available on the website. The live transcription feature has been enabled in Zoom, should you choose that option. And all of Danville meeting agendas have information on how to participate in the public meetings and to provide live comments this evening. You can use the raise hand feature in Zoom. Your name will be announced and only your audio will be enabled, and you're asked to state your name for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. You'll hear a buzzer at the 2.5 minute mark, at which time you are asked to sum up your comments. Again, wait until the mayor has opened the item to public comment before raising your hand. There is one hand raised at the moment, and I'm going to go ahead and lower that. Thank you.
Marie, thank you. Yes, please, those of you, when we call the item, we'll let you know when you can raise your hands for that. Thank you very much. Next, this will take us to item number 2, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. And we're very honored tonight to have our Deputy Town Manager, Diane Friedman, lead us in that. And if everybody else would please mute yourself while we join Diane.
Thank you, Mayor Arnerich. Please join me in placing your hand over your heart and reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Diane, thank you so much for getting us off to a great start. Now, item number 3. And to Joe, are there any changes to the order of the agenda tonight?
Mayor Arnerich, we have no changes this evening.
Great, thank you for that. Okay, this now takes us to item number 4, which is for the good of the town. This is an opportunity for anybody who's joining us here tonight as an attendee to raise their virtual hand, which you may do now, please. And we will call on you, and you will have, if you please state your name, address, and we'll give you 3 minutes, and we look forward to your comments. But because it's not on tonight's agenda, we cannot make any comments from that or take any action tonight. How we could consider it for future discussions or referral to staff. Marie, we'll start first with, were there any written for the good of the town comments?
There were no written comments provided this evening for the good of the town.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I see we have 3 who have raised their hand. And we'll start with, Veronica Benjamin. Veronica, welcome back. Nice to hear you.
Hello, Mayor Arnerich and the Honorable Town Council. As you are all well aware, there was a horrific display of blatant white supremacy and racism, and actually even neo-Nazi ideology in our town this Saturday, which occurred at the same time as the tragic terrorist attack in Buffalo, New York, as well as in Laguna Woods in Southern California. We have been asking you for over a year to make a clear and decisive statement against racism in our town, especially following 2 police shootings, in which 2 BIPOC men who were living with mental illness lost their lives. I personally feel that you have not taken all these steps and all the actions that you could to send a clear message to all residents, the type of town that we live in. I feel like we try to maintain a veneer of inclusivity while we also maintain a status quo that tells many Black and brown people they don't really belong here, that they're other, and that they, if they behave the right way, they might stay in Danville as guests. I also, once again, am really disappointed in our sheriff coroner for dragging his feet in the investigation of Tyrell Wilson's police murder. I called the coroner last week and I heard from the deputy that he single-handedly, meaning the Sheriff Livingston has single-handedly delayed Tyrell Wilson's coroner's investigation. When the sheriff had told you all that this investigation would happen in January, I don't understand why there's not more outcry from you and criticism of the sheriff for the 5 months delay. I'd also seen by way of public records that many of you have made campaign donations to Sheriff Livingston. So again, it really questions where your allegiance is. Are you really trying to stand out for the people of Danville and for the victims of the horrific police shootings? Or are you just really trying to maintain the power of a sheriff who has committed many racist acts over his 12 years in that position? So I think there's many people here who would like to speak today. We're here in front of your town hall meeting center. I can't wait for these meetings to be in person. I do thank you for all that you've done for this town, but you really need to do more for the Black and brown residents. I just know that Tyrell could be alive had our town acted in community and in allyship with Black lives from an earlier start. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your opinions. And now we'll go to Renee. I'm sorry, Rena. My apologies. Rena, welcome.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Rena Chethre. I am a Danville resident of 9 years almost. I have spoken before, but it has been a while since I've attended one of these meetings. Unfortunately, life gets in the way. And, what made me come back to voice my opinion was the incident that Veronica mentioned that occurred on Saturday. And while I think the update or the statement from the Danville mayor is exactly what I'm looking for, condemning the incident and calling out what it was, I don't feel that it's visible enough for the community. And to me, it looks like something that was put out to appease those like me that were disgusted by it, but at the same time, not being visible enough to go to those who may disagree. And what I'm looking for from the town of Danville is to be more vocal about standing up to racism and these types of statements, because I feel like it's very important. It's not enough to just put up the statement and let it wash over in a website and never to be seen again and buried. We need to have it really shared across the community so we know where the town stands. And I understand this happened outside the borders, but there was a reason it happened, and they knew what they were doing, and they knew that there would not be an outcry from those in public office, and I don't know why. So I'm urging the town to be more transparent and visible about standing up to racism nationwide, especially in our town, so that everyone feels inclusive at all times. Thank you.
Rena, thank you. Also, just to be factually correct, it was posted on every social platform that we have. It made national news. It also made BBC News. It was on every single Bay Area station. here, just to be factually correct. And now our next speaker is Jennifer Leong. And Jennifer, welcome back. And I hope you did see, I did respond to your email.
Hi, yes. Thank you so much for having me. This is the first time I'm joining in this meeting. This is very personal, very close to my heart. My name is Jennifer Arboleda Leong. I am the sister of Vladimir Arboleda, who was killed in Danville 3.5 years ago. As you can probably know, that this is very, very hard for me and for my mother and our family, but it's time that we have to finally speak up. My friend, Veronica Benjamin, has been asking and pleading for a permanent memorial for my brother, Vladimir Arboleda. This is, and for Tyrell Wilson. This is not about politics. This is about two humans who lost their life in Danville. And Danville has the means to put a permanent memorial or something to honor their lives. And for their lives to be taken, I believe you owe this to us to just have, we're not asking for a big, huge banner or a statue, just maybe a little plaque that will honor my brother's name. And so my mother can go and maybe put flowers on there and, say a prayer and grieve so we can start to heal. So once again, I'm asking, as a family member, as a sister of Vladimir Arboleda, who was having a mental health crisis at that time, I'm asking for a permanent memorial and also in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month. And we are Asian Filipinos, and in honor of AAPI month. Thank you very much. And I hope you will implement this. And I know Danville has the means. I know they have the heart.
Jennifer, thank you for sharing your thoughts. We really appreciate hearing from you. Thank you. Okay, and our next speaker tonight For the Good of the Town is Sarah. Sarah, welcome back.
Hi, Mayor Arnerich. Thank you for having me. My name is Sarah Stroin. I'm out here in front of 201 Front Street with about 100 fellow community members, all here with our signs. And we're just really shaken up by the presence of the neo-Nazis in our town on I think it was Saturday. And we just wanted to make a really strong statement of community support for anti-racist ideals in our town. And we want you, our town council, to know how important it is that we make a really, really strong statement of our opposition to white supremacy in all its forms. And so we're now taking a little walk around the block. We're going to go straight out onto Danville Road. And I also just wanted to add that, we really think it's important that we have permanent memorials to Vladimir Arboleda and Tyrell Wilson installed in our town. And I would just I look forward to continuing the dialogue with you about how we can make that happen. And lastly, just really, again, want to make it clear that we need a statement of anti-racism on our town website, not just, this kind of mealy-mouthed inclusivity message. So thank you for hearing me today, and I will pass it on to the next person.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Michelle. Michelle, welcome.
Thank you, Town Council. I want to see you all lead this town. Lead this town to be a more welcoming and diverse place for all. That might not be what some of your voters want, but I hope you do what's right and not necessarily what gets you reelected. It's been hard to see you stand with David Livingston through both murders of Latimer and Tyrell, especially after Andrew Hall was convicted for Latimer's death. And David Livingston continues to uphold Tyrell's autopsy almost 18 months after his murder. The example that has been set in this town for the last 2 to 3 years is silence and support of questionable leadership in the sheriff's department. To be silent is to be complicit. Those men on Saturday knew they were welcomed here to spread their hate speech. While it might have been free speech, White Lives Matter is well-documented hate speech. Do we want to be known as the town where acts of white supremacy are accepted, or do we want to be the town that takes actions against it? I hope you choose the latter. I worry that not adding this weekend's incident to the agenda is further examples of your silence. Actions speak louder than words. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Michelle. I just want to make sure that people that are listening know we put out a very strong statement, as I said, and if you haven't seen it, please take the time. I've also been the one who's personally received all of the calls from that group and all of their followers, and taking that personally has been nonstop. And I don't change my opinion, nor does this council. And our next speaker, Dan, and Dan, I'm not sure who you are, but are you the same Dan that we've seen previously? Welcome.
Hello, can I be heard?
Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Just want to call the town of Danville to put the message on your Facebook page as well. I don't think I saw your message. I don't think it was on the message on the Facebook page, so make sure you put it on there as well. And then also to the 2 people that were murdered by Andrew Hall, Vladimir Alberetta and Tyrell Wilson. So that's pretty straightforward. I think everybody can understand that and wants that. And I think no one's going to stop until that.
Dan, are you still there? Dan, I think we lost your connection. Okay, I think we're going to go, we're going to move on then. Dan, thank you for those comments. We're going to go to Stephanie. Stephanie, welcome back. Stephanie, do you want to unmute? Stephanie, can you hear me? If so, you are muted, and we have it set. If you can speak, if you can unmute yourself. We'd appreciate your comments. Okay, Marie, I think we're having difficulty. Why don't we go to Teresa, and then we'll try before we end to go back. Teresa, welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Teresa, welcome.
I'm out on Harts Avenue with the group of people who are protesting, and it's Teresa Stroyne. I'm not sure if my full name shows on my Zoom ID. What I would like to say to the council members is that your silence equals approval. And I know you put out a statement yesterday or the day before, but that statement is about at least 2 years late in coming. And you're waiting and waiting. Your complicit silence has emboldened the hate groups in our town to the point now they feel free to demonstrate in front of Blackhawk. I'd like to read you a quote from Albert Einstein that I think goes to your silence. The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything. I would, and our group, Conscious Contra Costa, demands an anti-racism affirmation on our homepage of our website, not buried on some other page where it has to be searched for. It should be the first thing that anyone sees. Despite what goes on in this town, we, the leaders who should lead from the front, not behind the citizens, we, the leaders and the citizens, believe in active anti-racism. And I also concur with the viewpoints of the people who have spoken before me. And thank you for letting me speak.
Great, thanks, Teresa. We appreciate hearing your opinions. And we'll go to Stephanie Tadeo. Stephanie, welcome back. Stephanie, if you can unmute. And while we're waiting, just a note, we did put out a press release last year. And by the way, it's on the front page of our website. Stephanie, if you can unmute yourself, we'd like to hear your comments. Stephanie, we cannot hear you. If not, Marie, I think we're going to go ahead and go back to Dan. Dan was cut off. If we can hear Dan, he had about 1 minute left.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, Dan, you've got about 1 minute left. We did.
Okay, great. Sounds good. Thanks a lot. So I just want to say, Black Lives Matter in Danville. We need to make it more happen. It was a tragedy tomorrow with the Nazis sitting out there. So for the next 15 seconds, I'm going to give in Danville by Andrew Hall. So the next 15 seconds. Thanks a lot. Starting now.
Dan, were you going to come back to us? Sorry.
Yes, I'm going to come back to you in a couple. I'm going to give it a couple more seconds. You just need a couple more seconds. We're out here on Harts Avenue. There's about 100 of us. We want those memorials made possible. What's the holdup? I don't understand the holdup. Let's just get the memorials done. The guy's going to go to prison for 6 years. Might as well, do that for the families. I'm sure they get moving on that. Don't delay on it any further. And then that would be a good thing. That would be an anti-racist.
Dan, is
a moment of silence.
Dan, I'm sorry, we're trying to follow you. Cut in a little, in and out a little bit. Are you going to share something else with us?
Page, the statement. Is it on your Facebook page? Can you hear me?
Dan?
Yes.
Please finish.
Can you put it on your Facebook page as well, the statement that you put out yesterday? Put the statement on the Town of Danville's Facebook page. Can you do it?
Dan, we hear you. I'm not answering any questions here.
Oh, you should answer it. Come on, man. Let's go.
Dan,
let's go.
Legally,
let's go. Put it on your Facebook. You can legally do it. Yes, you can.
No, we can't answer you. Now listen to me.
Oh, no, don't speak. Excuse me.
Sorry.
Excuse me. Don't raise your voice towards me. I didn't raise my voice towards you.
Actually,
ask,
that's all right.
Simple question.
It's under for the good of the town. We cannot answer questions directly. Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
Okay, Stephanie, Sarah, I see you've raised your hand again. You've already spoken once. Stephanie, welcome. Can you unmute yourself this time? Stephanie, we cannot hear you. I'm sorry. Can you try to see if you can unmute? We'd like to hear your comments if you can. Okay, I'm going to give you one more time. If you can't unmute, we're going to have to move on. And please feel free to send an email to me or to our city clerk, and we can get your comments later. Okay, at this time, is there anybody else in our attendees who would like to address the council under for the good of the town? Seeing none, then we're going to close the public hearing for the good of the town. Marie, thank you for your assistance in all of that. Okay, this will take us to item number 5, which is proclamations. Item number 5.1 is a reading of proclamation recognizing the month of May 2022 as Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, also known as API. And I'll read this as follows. Whereas Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month in the United States originated with Congress in 1978 and was designated as an annual month-long event in 1992. And whereas the month of May was chosen for Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month to commemorate the immigration of the first Japanese people to the United States in May of 1843, and to mark the anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad on May 10th, 1869, constructed by labor mostly of Chinese immigrants. Whereas Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month seeks to honor and recognize the contributions of residents from Asia, India, and the Pacific Islands. Whereas Asian American and Pacific Islanders bring a diversity that represents one of our greatest strengths by recognizing their contributions and accomplishments. We celebrate the importance of inclusion to building a brighter future for all of our citizens. And whereas Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have been made valuable contributions to all areas of life in our community, including government, business, arts, sciences, medicine, education, law enforcement, and the military. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Danville Town Council does hereby proclaim the month of May 2022 as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month in the town of Danville. And we are proud as a council to make this a standing proclamation recognizing the contributions of our community. Any comments, Dave, or anybody on the council want to make any comments on this? Okay, seeing, yeah, Dave, if you want to unmute.
I apologize, Mayor. Again, thank you for proclaiming the month of May 2022 as the Asian American and Pacific Islanders Heritage Month. We believe it's not only an opportunity for our communities to educate and showcase API cultures, experiences, and contributions, but really highlight the human sacrifices by the API facing discrimination, exploitation, and exclusion over many decades and generations. But more importantly, contributions to the growth of America and key involvement and role of API and how they've really made their mark in, as you mentioned earlier, business, science, education, sports, and various other industries. This is the time to celebrate. This is the month to really share and to honor the API experiences and remind us that diversity not only enriches, but is fundamental to the success of our society. So again, thank you, Mayor, for proclaiming this month as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month.
Great. Councilmember Fong, thank you so much for saying those words and sharing on behalf of the entire community. Okay, this will take us to item number 5.2, and this is proclaiming the month of May 2022 as Jewish American Heritage Month. And I'll read the proclamation as follows. Whereas Jewish American Heritage Month is an annual celebration of Jewish Americans who have helped weave the fabric of American history, culture, and society. And whereas 2022 marks the 42nd annual celebration of achievements and contributions by Jewish Americans, starting with the establishment of Jewish American Heritage Week in 1980 and expanded upon in 2006 when Congress ordered that the country observe annual Jewish Heritage Month each May. Whereas Jewish American Heritage Month acknowledges achievements of American Jews in the fields of sports, arts, entertainment, medicine, business, science, government, military service, music, and much more. And whereas Jewish Americans have created lives for themselves and their families and played indispensable roles in our nation's civic and community life, making invaluable contributions to our nation through their leadership and achievements. Whereas Jewish Americans have made cultural contributions to our collective struggle for a more just and fair society, leading movements for social justice and working to ensure that the opportunities they have secured are extended to others. And whereas Jewish American Heritage Month pays tribute to the generations of Jewish Americans who have helped form the fabric of American history, now therefore it be resolved that the Danville Town Council does hereby proclaim the month of May 2022 as Jewish American Heritage Month in the town of Danville. I would just like to pass on behalf of Rabbi Dan from Beth Hayim, his appreciation of this, and particularly of the statements made by the council on behalf of the town against hate speech and the hate actions that have occurred in and around our community and throughout the Bay Area. I would also just like to acknowledge, most of you don't know this, but my wife is Jewish. Her grandfather was hunted down like an animal over 110 years ago in Odessa, Ukraine, to either assimilate or die. He was fortunate as one of the only members of his family to escape and made it to the United States, having to go through South America. And during World War II, he produced, with his unique knowledge of being somebody who knew how to make something that we were desperately in need of, is little tiny springs that were made for instruments and things like that. So I will accept this on behalf of our community as well. Does anybody have any comments or anything else they'd like to say before we move on? Okay, this will take us to item number 6, which is our consent calendar. I'm sorry, Karen, I did not see you. Want to unmute?
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Saw you, but I didn't hear you.
I just wanted to make one comment because when I was growing up, I read all of the All of a Kind family books, and that's how I learned all about the Jewish culture. And so if you have children at home, I encourage you to have them read that series.
Very good. Thank you, Karen. Okay, this will take us to our consent calendar, which is item number 6. And tonight, that is items number 6.1 through 6.8. These are considered routine and can be acted on in one motion by the council. However, if there's a council member who would like to remove one for comment or discussion, please let us know and we'll do that now. Seeing none, is there anybody who is on our attendee list who would like to remove any of consent calendar items number 6.1 through 6.8 for discussion? Please use your virtual raise hand feature in Zoom and we will call on you. Marie, I do not see any. Do you see?
No requests to speak on items on the consent calendar.
And were there any written comments received on consent calendar items?
And no written comments received by the town on 6.1 through 6.8.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'd like to move that we approve consent items 6.1 through 6.8.
Second that.
Thank you. Any further comments or discussion? Seeing none, Marie, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Fong,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Stepper,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Storer,
Yes.
and Mayor Arnerich.
Aye.
The consent calendar was approved unanimously.
Great, thank you, everyone. And this now takes us to item number 7 under communications. And tonight we have 2 items under that, both of which we are really looking forward to. And tonight we're going to start off on item number 7.1, with a report from our Director of Maintenance, Dave Castile. Dave, welcome. There you are. I'm trying to figure out which box you're in. There you are. My upper right. Okay.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. It's obviously always a pleasure to be before you and share a little bit about what maintenance has going on. So as you all are well aware, we continue to stay very busy, especially going into the summer season, as you all know. But that being said, I also recognize that there's a pretty exciting item a little further down on the agenda, and so I will do my best to be brief to allow you all to spend time on that. So I'll just jump right into some of our program areas and share a few highlights. And I figured I would also this time maybe just kind of scroll through some pictures as I do so. So bear with me as I attempt to share my screen here. Are you all able to see that, hopefully?
Yes.
Great.
Good.
Great. So like I said, just jumping through some of the program areas in parks, very busy, very productive last several months here. Perhaps most notably the Diablo Vista Park Sports Field Lighting Project, where we had the new sports field lighting installed at the 60-foot diamond. It's part of a project with our Sports Alliance group, who, as you know, funded the project in its entirety. The project went extremely well, start to finish. Very pleased with how it turned out. And as field space is always at a premium, the adding lights to this field should add up to 750 hours of playability each year for our various sports user groups, which is just great. So though when the sports fields reopened earlier this year, end of February, beginning of March, these lights were ready to go. So they've already been put into use quite a bit, and we're looking forward to years to come with that. And again, another great partnership with our Sports Alliance group. We also, after finding that the bidding climate was not particularly favorable to replace the gazebo as we had initially planned, I'm really proud to say that our maintenance staff jumped in and took the initiative to find a different solution there. And so they ended up, we said they were going to rehab the gazebo a bit, but realistically what they ended up doing was almost rebuilding the whole thing. And as you can see there, we've got all new wooden posts, railings, completed some roofing repairs, and repainted the entire structure. And it darn near looks good as new. So
it's
really
better. Dave, it's better. I'm sorry, I built the original one. This is better. You guys did a much better job.
Well, that's very nice of you to say. I'll be sure to pass that on to Daniel and the group who worked on it, because like I said, they did a great job, and we're really looking forward to seeing weddings out there as we go back into the summertime here. So that should be plenty of fun. Let's see, just over on the other side of Hat McGee Ranch Park, we have our Canine Corral, where we completed our annual renovation, put in all new sod in the large dog park. We installed 2 new benches in the small dog park, as Councilmember Stepper well knows, to provide some more seating opportunities and better shade opportunities. We also added over 100 yards of bark mulch around the perimeter. As you can see, it looks pretty fresh and new there. And so far, so good. The grass is holding up, I'd say maybe a little bit better than in years past, and we continue to keep close tabs on it. And most importantly, the Canine Corral continues to be voted the best dog park in the East Bay, which our crew is very proud of. And then last but not least, for parks, we completed our annual ball field prep and renovation leading into the new year. So that's all of our various diamonds, where we bring the tractor out and regrade them and locate and relocate bases and plates and pitching rubbers. And we've also been working with the user groups, in particular ServGal and TVLL, over the last couple of months to address everything and anything and everything as it comes up, and try to keep our fields in great playing condition. So as usual, they're getting plenty of use, and we're happy to see that, as we've got maybe about a month or so to go here to wrap up the baseball and softball seasons. Moving in over to Roadsides. Roadsides is a little bit of the unsung heroes. A lot of the work they do pertains to irrigation repairs and modifications, and necessary tree work for primarily for safety, also for the health of the trees and aesthetics. But if you don't know what to look for, you may not see a lot of what they do on a day-to-day basis. But they really have been accomplishing a lot out there lately, including right now we've got a project on Diablo Road the medians on either side of the 680 overpass, the raised median that you see here. They cleaned up the plant material a little bit and renovated, added the bark mulch that you see to try to help it pop a little bit as one of the main entries into our downtown area. On the other side of the freeway, to the east of the freeway, we just removed some underperforming trees and plant material, and we're going to regrade that area out, retrofit the irrigation with more water efficient options, and clean up and put in some fresh plant material and trees there, and really try to make it a fresh, new, good looking entry into our town and to our downtown as a whole. So good progress being made there. Here's the other median where in progress, if you will. So bear with us. We're working hard on having this done prior to the 4th of July parade. Each year we make a point of going around and identifying our crepe myrtle trees throughout town. We have plenty of them that could use some pruning for the health of the tree and aesthetics, as well as site and height clearances. So this year, town-wide, we pruned about 250 crepe myrtle trees between our staff and contract services. And I have to say, these are probably some of my favorite trees when they start to bloom. They're just beautiful. And I know a lot of the pruning, the work that they do out there provides what those trees need to come back with great new growth and bloom. So they're looking as good as ever. And then one of the other things that we've done at a variety of locations throughout town is replenish the bark mulch. One, with the golden nuggets, the lighter bark, it does have a pop element where it kind of grabs your attention a little bit more and makes the areas look a little bit better. But there's also other important reasons why we do this, which is it does help retain moisture in the soil, which helps with our water conservation efforts. So we've done this in several locations, including medians on El Cerro. This location, as you can see on the street sign there, it's as you enter the town from the north side of town, Danville Boulevard and El Portal. As you head down that street, that was probably about another 100 yards of bark mulch just in that section alone, up against the plant material and the oleanders. And I'd say that section of Danville Boulevard probably looks as good as it ever has at least since I've been over in maintenance. So real happy with how that turned out, and we're continuing to look at ways to not only find ways to make things look better, but to, like I said, manage our water resources first and foremost.
Dave.
Yes, ma'am.
This is where the Flages Trail plaque is located. So people need to go see all the work you've done and read that historic plaque.
Yes, and kudos to we had an Eagle Scout, or wanting to become an Eagle Scout, complete a project there where they renovated the plant material at the corner, cleaned up the plaque, and really did a great job out there. Put a lot of effort into it, and so we've kind of dovetailed off of that to extend down the area there. But absolutely, point well received on that.
Beautiful.
Let's see, in our buildings area, we've been doing a lot of air conditioning and heater repairs and replacements lately. So what you see here is at the McGee House at McGee Ranch Park. We recently completed the replacement of the HVAC unit, which, being a roof mounted unit, was no small feat, as you can see by the large crane that it required. But the project went well, and everything is back up and running in advance of all the summer activities that we'll have out there, which was one of our priorities. Conversely, over at the Vets Hall, we kudos to the buildings team on this one, because we had a compressor fail in one of the HVAC units. And we worked to have that replaced, only to find that there was a leak in the Freon line, which runs through the walls and the basement, and who knows where this leak could have been. So they worked real closely with the contractors for several days out there, and ultimately identified a leak in a coil in the basement. We're able to secure that part and get it replaced, and have the system back up and running now as we approach getting our warmer weather here, which I'm sure that the veterans and those that use the senior center are very appreciative of. So it turned out to be quite the undertaking, but glad we got through that. And then last but not least, in buildings, our staff, part of their routine inspections and keeping tabs on all of our buildings, found that the water heater at the Oak Hill Park Community Center was leaking and beginning to fail. And I think within a matter of 24, maybe 48 hours by the time we actually were able to get the unit itself, had it replaced with a new unit, and made sure that everything's running properly there. So didn't interrupt any use of the building, and everything should be good to go there now. Moving along the streets, a project I'm really excited about, actually. We worked with Andy Dillard and the transportation folks, and if you've driven down the Sycamore Valley Road or Camino Tasajara corridor in the last week or so, you may have noticed this, particularly at nighttime. But these reflective raised pavement markers have been installed at intervals of about 24 feet on the median curbs going both directions. So far, they've accomplished from the Park and Ride to Sherburne Hills, which accounts for over 1,000 of these RPMs that have been placed on the medians. They'll complete the project going out to all the way out to Lawrence Road, which by the time all is said and done, it'll be somewhere in the range of 2,000 to 3,000 raised pavement markers. And the purpose of these being reflective, and I noticed this the other night when I was driving home, is it really draws a lot more attention to those medians, and you see that curb line very well at night when it may have been a little bit harder to see. So a really, really great safety improvement. We've made great progress on it so far, and I think we should be wrapping up in the next week or so, depending on what else comes across our desk here. But if you happen to drive the corridor at night or early in the morning, be sure to keep an eye out, because I think it's a really, really nice improvement that we've been able to work with transportation on doing. The streets crew and their comings and goings also assisted with the recent pavement management project, helping out the CIP team by doing a remove and replace of some failed asphalt and removing a stop legend and the RPMs prior to the slurry seal application. It's work that wasn't necessarily included in the contract, and after receiving the change order and proposed cost, CIP team reached out to our guys, and they were able to come in and take care of that work and save the town and our taxpayers a good chunk of money while not holding up the project at all. And then it's tough to tell with this amazing weather that we're experiencing right now, but as you'll recall, we did have a fair amount of rain off and on throughout the winter. And when that happens on Diablo Road, towards the windy section of the road, we do have the hills that, dirt will come down and wash away into the roadside ditches, which can cause mudslides and much bigger problems. So after some of those recent storms, the streets crew, it had to be one of the most efficient closures I've ever seen. They had the road closed for maybe 15 to 20 minutes. And as you can see there, they brought in the backhoe and were able to scoop out a lot of the dirt that had washed off into the roadway ditch, restoring the flow capacity and making sure that water goes where we want it to go if and when we get rain again. So really great job out there. Wrapping up just a few other projects that we completed. We did fabricate and install the Friendship City sign out in front of the town green, as you can see here, which matches our downtown wayfinding sign. So completed as part of the mayor's project there. We also, as the council is aware, just last month took over maintenance responsibility for the landscaping along Camino Ramon and San Ramon Valley Boulevard. That was installed as part of the auxiliary lane project after a 5-year establishment period. So our roadside supervisor, Adam Rodriguez, will be overseeing that work. It's a good amount of new landscaping and irrigation to be responsible for. So he's kind of got his hands full, but we're working closely with our contractors to make sure that we get it up to Danville standards and then to keep it that way. And then one other thing, a new development that we're real pleased with, we rolled out when the sports fields reopened, is we, through our website, have added the ability to sign up for sports field and dog park status notification, text and email alerts. So previously we had the sports field hotline that was antiquated and unreliable, to be candid at times, that people would have to call in to figure out if sports fields were closed due to the weather or the dog park. So now we have it on our, we've refreshed the page on the website to make it a lot more clear. And when folks go to check the status on the website, they have the option to sign up for these email or text alerts, so that anytime the status changes, they automatically get notified and they no longer have to go out of their way to look for the status, which we think is a nice value add for our residents. And we're a couple of months in on using it, and it's worked out really well so far. So we're looking forward to moving more in that direction in the months ahead. So let's see, I'll try to stop sharing my screen here briefly as I wrap up. Hopefully I'm back before you all here. But just looking ahead as we wrap up, we discussed this a little bit this morning, but we are working to finalize the design for the new Oak Hill Park playground and look forward to hopefully getting underway with construction late this year on that. And I think that'll just be a great project once we're ready to go there. We've also got yet another HVAC unit to replace, this one at the town meeting hall, which is another one on the roof. So it'll be quite the job. And once we get past some supply chain issues, we look forward to completing that. We ordered the unit a couple of months ago, and we're just a few short months away from getting it. So, but blame the supply chain these days. But we are moving towards having that replaced soon. And then with it being mid-May and rolling into the summer season, special event and irrigation season will be in full force. So our crews are out doing irrigation inspections and repairs daily to try to minimize any water waste and really maximize our resources. And with the special event schedule pretty much back to full swing, we will definitely have our hands full preparing for the events and facilitating them during and cleaning up and reopening after all of them. But we certainly look forward to that. And one thing I'll just leave you with, I got an email this afternoon that I thought would be good to share with you all, and is representative of what we do out here. So you all know Scott Wallace out here, who's been with the town for many years, MacGyver, as you may know him. I got an email from a resident this afternoon, a gentleman that said he was in his 70s and was on a bike ride miles away from his house down Sycamore when he got a flat tire. Scott was working his way back to the service center, happened to see the gentleman walking his bike back and having a bit of a struggle. So he pulled off to the side and first attempted to try to fix the flat tire, which if you know Scott Wallace, you know if it could be fixed, he would have been the guy to do it. But upon realizing that the tire was too far gone, he loaded the bike up in the back of his truck and gave the gentleman a ride back to his house a few miles away. And the gentleman shared with me he is in the process of getting both of his knees replaced. So you can understand how daunting this walk back would have been. So I just think efforts like that I think are really reflective of the small town atmosphere and outstanding quality of life that we strive to provide our residents. And I wanted to end with that because I thought that was a great representation of what we do out here every day. And I'm trying to slide over as the sun creeps more and more on me here. So my apologies for that. But with that, I will conclude my presentation. And if there are any questions from the council, I'm more than happy to answer anything you may have.
Great,
Thank
Dave.
you for your time.
Yeah, Dave, thank you so much. Awesome job. And you're right. It's amazing what a small group of highly dedicated people, such as you and your small team, does to make such a beautiful impact on making this a wonderful place and keeping it looking well. So comments or questions? We'll start with Renee.
Well, it's nice seeing you twice today, Dave. We've had our budget session this morning, so it was great to see you then as well. I did want to say one of the things that you mentioned was supplies. I know there's been a shortage on a lot of things, and obviously prices have gone up. What's the leadway right now for getting supplies, and are we ordering in advance?
We're certainly trying. Things in certain areas are getting better. Fortunately, a lot of our day-to-day supplies, bathroom supplies, janitorial supplies, things along those lines, we haven't had too much trouble getting. But some of these pieces of equipment is where we are having a little bit of a harder time. There are the longer lead times. The town meeting hall is actually probably a great example for that. The unit is functional, but it is in the range of 20 years old. Showing signs of decline. So rather than waiting and finding that it failed and then having to scramble to have it replaced, and who knows how long that could take, we did go ahead and put that order in a couple of months ago so that we can hopefully have it in time to replace it before it gets to that. So we're trying to be as proactive as we can.
Yeah, it's got to be difficult, but you're doing a great job. So I just wanted to ask you one other question, and I know something that you started back in 2013 was the Danville Connect, and you didn't mention it now, but I know we talked about it this morning. I was wondering, since we have some people that are listening in, if that's something you could just tell us a little bit about and how it works.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for that. For those that may not be aware, the town does have kind of a one-stop shop app, the Danville Connect app. That you can download from the Apple or Google Play stores. It is free. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It has a lot of features on it, including our Live Locally newsletter, access to our council members and the like. But it also has the ability to report any issues or concerns or ask questions. And the app, it gives the ability a lot of different topics to choose from. They are searchable, so you can easily find what it is that you would like to report. And then the way that it is set up, when a request is submitted based on the topic, it gets automatically routed to the appropriate staff person, which certainly saves time and helps those that may not know which department they're actually looking for. If they find the topic, they know they want to talk to somebody about sidewalks, they can find the sidewalk topic and it'll go to the right department. So it's a great tool for us. It really helps us engage with our residents and be responsive to their concerns. And for those that do have the app, if there is something you want to report, it takes all of about 5 seconds to do it. So it's very convenient. And for those that are interested, I certainly recommend doing a quick download for that.
Well, it's a great app and I appreciate it. And it's like you said, it's expedient, and you guys, your turnaround time on that is exceptional as well. So, we have our little saying of our small town atmosphere and outstanding quality of life. And when you look around Danville, that's the reason most of us are here. And you all keep it that way. So thank you so much, Dave. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the feedback. I appreciate it very much.
Okay, thanks. By the way, that app was just recently updated. The graphics and everything is really stunning. Other questions, Vice Mayor Storr?
Great. Thanks, Dave. And it was really a pleasure watching you this morning in budget and trying to understand how well you run your department and how you do your best with our lighting and landscape district. And that's a handful in itself, and I appreciate your good effort there. So please pass on our congratulations to your team. The town looks incredible. We're coming out of winter, we're getting into spring, and it looks incredible, and it's all due to you and your team, and we appreciate each one of you. So please pass that on to your guys.
Will do. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm very, very fortunate to have a great team that frankly makes me look a lot better than I probably would otherwise. So thank you.
No, believe me, we all appreciate what you do. And in that Danville Connect, I really encourage everyone to do it because you'll get a response back generally within 24 hours, if not sooner. I've gotten responses back literally within 8. So excellent app.
Yeah, thank you. I want to note, most of the people that are still in the attendees are here for our update. And Jill Bergman, it's 3 a.m. I just figured out where she's at. So we don't want her to fall asleep. So we can wrap up our comments. Let's get to Diane and move on. Yes, Karen, you need to unmute. Karen, you need to unmute.
Best report ever, Dave. Every time you give a report, I cannot believe the amount of work that's done by the number of people we hire. It's just such a small number. And I have several photos because every time I say I'm going to take a picture and send it to Dave Castile, who provided these benches, they all run over there with their dogs and sit there and model. So I get those pictures to you. Thank you.
That's very great to hear. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Dave. Okay, let's go to next up, our Deputy Town Manager. Diane Friedman is here to give us an update on the legislative update. Diane, welcome. Diane, rookie.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Mayor Arnerich, and good evening, Town Council. In the spirit of helping Jill out, this will be a brief legislative update for the Town Council this evening. This Friday, May 20th, is an important milestone in the legislative session. It is the last day for bills to make it out of the appropriations committees. During the legislative session, bills that are deemed to have a major fiscal impact on the state are referred to appropriations and placed in what is referred to as a suspense file. This week, all of those bills will be reviewed and determinations will be made as to whether or not they move forward or they fail to continue the session. Next week, our floor sessions where all the legislation still moving forward in each house is voted on. Friday, May 27th, which is the last day for bills to be passed out of the House they were introduced in, commonly referred to as the House of Origin. Each bill changes House at the beginning of June and starts the legislative process all over again. This marks the halfway point of the legislative session. Tonight's report will include an update from the April 26th Legislative Committee's work. The town's legislative committee follows legislation that is identified as a priority through the Tri-Valley Cities Coalition and by the Danville Town Council based upon the town's legislative framework. The town has identified and is tracking the following bills that impact Danville. AB 1551, which is a planning and zoning development bonuses mixed use bill. This bill would reenact provisions regarding the granting of development bonuses to certain projects when a commercial developer agrees to partner with an affordable housing developer to construct a mixed-use project if certain conditions apply. A local government would, in addition to granting incentives under this law, would have to annually submit to the Department of Housing and Community Development information describing an approved commercial development bonus. This bill expired on June 1st, 2022, and it is being reintroduced by the author to sunset in 2028. This bill over the last 2 years was not very impactful, creating only 880 affordable units. However, the author feels that this bill needs to be introduced again to encourage affordable housing. We have a watch position on this bill. The next bill is AB 1621. It seeks to eradicate ghost guns from California streets. This bill amends the definition of a firearm in the penal code to include a firearm precursor part. A firearm precursor part is defined as any forging, casting, printing, extrusion, machined body that has reached the stage of being readily completed, assembled, or converted as a firearm. This bill is focused on guns that do not have serial numbers. We support this bill. Next bill is AB 1771. This is the California Housing Speculation Act. This bill would, after January 1st of 2023, impose an additional 25% tax on that portion of a taxpayer's net capital gain from the sale or exchange of a qualified asset as defined as real property. These taxes would be reduced depending on how many years has passed since the taxpayer's initial purchase of a qualified asset. This bill would also create the Speculation Recapture Community Reinvestment Fund and would deposit the revenues received as a result of this increase in tax in a fund to spend on affordable housing. And this purely is a speculation bill. This bill continues to get re-referred to the Revenue and Taxation Committee, usually not a good indicator that the bill will move forward. We have a watch position on this bill. The next bill is AB 2011, Affordable Housing and the High Roads Jobs Act of 2022. This bill establishes the Affordable Housing and High Roads Jobs Act of 2022 to create a ministerial streamlined approval process for 100% affordable housing in commercially zoned areas and for mixed income housing along commercial corridors. Certain conditions need to be met in order to qualify for this streamlined approval, including location provisions, objective standard provisions, and labor provisions, including construction workers being paid prevailing wages. We oppose this bill. The next bill is AB 2053, the Social Housing Act. This measure would enact the Social Housing Act and would create the California Housing Authority as an independent state body, the mission of which would be to produce and acquire social housing developments for the purpose of eliminating the gap between housing production and regional housing needs assessment targets. And we have a position of oppose on this bill. The next bill is AB 2170, which is residential real property, and it has to do with foreclosure sales. This bill would prescribe requirements that would apply to the sales of real property consisting of 1 to 4 residential dwelling units that a federal government-sponsored enterprise acquires by foreclosure. An enterprise would be required during the first 30 days that the property is listed for sale to consider only purchase offers from the prospective owner occupants and eligible bidders. Any investor purchases would be authorized to submit offers. However, their offers would not be considered until a 30-day period has expired. And we have a watch position on this bill. The next bill is AB 2295, Local Educational Agencies Housing Development Projects. This provides that a housing development project must be deemed as an authorized use on any real property owned by a local educational agency. And we have our school district in mind for this bill. If it meets specified affordability criteria and planning standards. We have a watch on this, and we have contacted the school district in reference to this bill. The school district at this point in time is interested, but is not weighing in on this bill. The next bill is AB 2328. We have 3 bills coming up right now that have an impact on Danville. AB 2328, this bill would prohibit a city or county from prohibiting the use of property as a home experience sharing unit defined as a privately owned non-commercial property or residential dwelling unit that is rented partially for a fee for a period of fewer than 18 continuous hours. As of this point in time, the League of California Cities, I won't go into any more detail, the League of California Cities has this bill listed as dead. The next bill that we had on our list is the Mitigation Fee Act, fees for improvements, timelines for expenditure. And this bill would require any fees not expended within a period of 5 years, mitigation fees, to be returned to the qualified applicant. The League also, at this point, has this bill as dead. AB 2631, the Government Claims Act, this establishes the liability and immunity of a public entity for its acts or omissions that cause harm to persons. This bill specifically would provide that a public entity is liable for injury relating to the effects of that public agency's homelessness policies on another public entity. This bill right now is listed as dead, and we will continue to track these bills, but right now that's good news for us. SB 379, residential solar energy systems permitting. This bill would require every city and county to implement an online automated permitting platform that verifies code compliance and issues permits in real time for a solar energy system. We have a watch on that. This bill does not seem to be moving forward. That's why we have a watch on it at this point in time. The next bill is SB 897, accessory dwelling units. This bill would change the height limitation applicable to an accessory dwelling unit subject to ministerial approval to 25 feet. We have an oppose listed on this bill. Next bill is SB 1338, the Community Assistance Recovery and Empowerment Court Program. This bill would authorize specified people to petition a civil court to create a care plan and implement services to be provided by the county behavioral health agencies to provide behavioral health care, stabilization medication, and housing support to adults who are suffering from a mental health disorder and who lack medical decision-making capacity. We have a watch on this position. Moving into an update on the Tri-Valley Cities Coalition. On May 4th, the Tri-Valley Cities mayors participated in a Sacramento Advocacy Day. Mayors met with Assemblymember Rebecca Bauer-Cahan, both the Chief of Staff and the Principal Consultant to the Government Finance Committee in Senator Ana Caballero's office. Senator Caballero is the chair of the Senate Governance and Finance Committee. Senator Steve Glazer and Assembly Member Cecilia Aguiar Curry, the chair of the Local Government Committee. These meetings were an opportunity to reintroduce the TVC and discuss areas impacting the Tri-Valley, including housing, water quality, behavioral health, environmental quality, organic waste reduction, and the Valley Link project. Under grants, as noted earlier during the day at the study session, the town did receive a status update from Congressman DeSaulniers' office on our federal request of $500,000 for the fiber optic interconnect project. Unfortunately, due to the overwhelming number of submissions this year, they were unable to submit our application to the Appropriations Committee. We thanked our contact in the Congressman's office, Sarah Jackson, and reiterated our gratefulness for last year's $1.35 million appropriation for the Traffic Signal Modernization Program and the Iron Horse Trail Crossing Project. We still have a budget request of $500,000 at the state level for the fiber optic interconnect project, which was submitted to Assemblymember Rebecca Bauer-Cahan and Senator Glazer. The deadline for the state budget is June 15th, and I did receive an update from Andres at Townsend today that we will be hearing about this submission anywhere after June 15th. Most likely, we will be hearing, it could be as late as August when all the budget trailer bills have been submitted and introduced. The next legislative committee meeting will be June 28th, and that concludes the legislative update. And with that, I will turn it back to you, Mayor Arnerich.
Great, Diane. Wow, thank you. Believe it or not, it's still another busy year. The legislature doesn't seem to sleep. And still, as Diane has outlined, a lot of focus about housing and things. But we really have to add a big thanks to Senator Glazer, Assemblymember Rebecca Bauer-Cahan, and Congressmember Mark DeSaulnier for their help in getting us earmarked funding, both at the federal level and at the state level. And as Diane mentioned, that we have with our two local state members, they also have additional requests. I just note for the record, there was only one mayor that went to Sacramento, one vice mayor and two council members, and we had no representation from one of the cities. Yeah, hopefully next year, or even if we have to go back, that we can get everybody on the same page. Danville's there. We've always been there, and just got to get our other folks on there. Right? Questions or comments, Diane? Okay, so the big update will be the next round because the budget will be passed. It also begins to indicate really what's going forward and what's not. And many of these bills, you know, it sounds like they're saving the whales, but really what it was a tax on your house if you sold it within holding it for less than 7 years, and it had this fancy title. You wouldn't know that it's a 25% tax if you sell your house and keep it less than 7 years. This is somehow going to stop over speculation they believe is part of our housing problem. Who knows what's next? Okay, so let's do this. We're going to now pivot real quick, go to any other comments before we leave. Diane, again, thank you for all the hard work you put into this and keeping us up to speed. Item number 8 is a public hearing, and public comment is invited on this. This is item number 8.1, and it's consider adoption of resolution number 41-2022, adopting the Tri-Valley Transportation Development Fee pursuant to the requirements of the joint exercise of powers agreement of the Tri-Valley Transportation TVTC. Andrew Diller will be the point on this, and just a shout out to Councilmember Morgan, who was on this committee for 2 years while they looked at getting this update. As you know, the last time we did this, it was a big hiccup that took a long time. So we're down to the point where we have an agreement, and hopefully these are formalities for each of us. Danville is first to be the one to look at approving this. So Andrew, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of the Town Council. Thank you for hearing this item this evening. This is a consideration of recommendation of the 2022 Tri-Valley Transportation Development Fees, and I'm going to share my screen for a brief PowerPoint. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So just really briefly, background, the Tri-Valley Transportation Council was formed in 1991. It includes Alameda County, Contra Costa, Dublin, Pleasanton, Livermore, Danville, and San Ramon. Entered into a joint powers agreement to establish the TVTC. The purpose of the TVTC is a couple things. One is it's to prepare the Tri-Valley Transportation Plan Action Plan for routes of regional significance. And it's for a cost sharing of recommended improvements and an implementation of a regional transportation fee program. Back in 2013, the TVTC revamped the GPA and entered into a joint exercise power agreement comprised of the same 7-member jurisdictions. That made the TVTC a formal separate agency with the same responsibilities. So this brings us to this fee update. Our current fee was adopted back in 2013. There has been a series of extensions on it. And it was due for we're due for a fee update. The fee update, it's basically primarily a 4-step process. The first step in the process is to conduct a Nexus study in which the TVTC adopted back in August of 21. The second step after the Nexus is moving on to a strategic expenditure plan and determining the fee rate. This was adopted as initial step by the TVTC back in April of this year, and included a couple of public outreach community meetings prior to that. Step 3 is where we are this evening. All the member agencies are bringing it back to their councils for consideration of adoption. And then finally, the fee rate would go into effect beginning July of 2022. So as mentioned at the top, this has been a long process, almost 3 years in the making. It's pretty typical for a fee update of this nature. Step 1, again, is the Nexus study preparation. It includes land use assumptions, looking at development forecasts. We move on to updating our travel demand model for the Tri-Valley. It also includes identifying a new list of projects and then evaluating those projects based on their performance. We also look at existing funding for some of these projects that are already on the books, which primarily is really the primary source of funding for a lot of these projects, is the fee is just a supplemental contributor to these projects. From there, we develop a fee estimation. What is that rate going to be? And then, or what's the maximum allowable rate that we can charge? And then from there, we complete our Nexus burden analysis. So again, here's a snapshot. This is the Tri-Valley cities and counties. This is a snapshot of the cumulative 10-year development forecast. Won't look at this too hard, but it includes everything from all the land uses from single family all the way down to retail and office. So this is basically the first step in the process. From there, we looked at our existing projects on the books. Our current SEP has, or strategic expenditure plan has, a list A and a list B of projects, most of which are completed. Here's a look at the list B projects. And I will mention a special shout out that the I-680 auxiliary lanes project was one of the marquee projects in our particular area that's been funded with this fee program, and of course was completed several years ago. So from there, we wanted to identify new List C projects since most of these are done. The List C projects comprise of 23 total. It's a little bit of a departure what we've done in the past as far as, mostly roadway capacity projects. A lot of these involve, as you can see, Iron Horse Trail projects, so more multimodal in nature, somewhat more transit projects. So this was the list that we used for the Nexus study. It was kind of like our first attempt at our big project list. From there, the Nexus study determined what's the 100% max allowable we could charge to support those projects and as they relate to the forecast development. This is a look at that of the 100% maximum allowable. As you can see, they're very high, 43,000 for single family, all the way down to $58 per square foot for office. Again, this is the maximum allowable rate. So we moved on to step 2, which is the preparation of the strategic expenditure plan. And this is where we start taking a closer look at the projects we identified, prioritizing those projects. Then we start getting into revenue forecasts, what our fees could generate to come up with our strategic expenditure plan. As far as prioritization of projects, how we went through that exercise, we had 5 main criteria. First, we looked at project urgency. We looked at if any projects had current allocations. We looked at project readiness. We looked at current funding, and then of course, project effectiveness, i.e. how well the project aligns with goals and policies, general plans, regional transportation, and their effect on the network. So ultimately, the recommended funding plan that's before you this evening that this fee will pay for is 22 projects in total, 16 of which are either new projects that list C or their existing leftover AB project with additional funding appropriations, including 6 projects that were carried forward with prior appropriations, so we could honor our prior commitments in our current funding plan. This is a very busy matrix, but this is a look at all 22 of those projects, including those A and B projects and all the new C projects that are moving forward as part of this first SEP adoption and what the new fee will support. I will point out for our area of the Tri-Valley, the one project in particular that's going to benefit Danville is Innovate 680, which is project C10. You can see that down there towards the bottom to the tune of about $5.7 million. There's a lot of projects, of course, along the Iron Horse Trail, as I mentioned, including the overcrossing Bollinger Canyon Road. So that's the new list of projects. This is a little snapshot of what I was describing before of the different types of projects. It's just not roadway capacity, it's transit, it's safety, it's ped and bike, intersection improvements, and of course, technology, which involves Innovate 680. So what's before you this evening? This slide is showing the fee rate adjustment that's being recommended. It's an increase in the rate for fiscal year 22-23. And I'm going to go through this, this table really quickly. So the first column is the land use. The second column is the current rate, what we're currently charging. The third column, 2022 maximum, that's the maximum allowable rate that we can charge per the Nexus study. That's the slide that I showed you earlier. The fourth column here, these are the recommended rates that the TVTC is recommending. And that's year 1, 22-23, and year 2, 23-24. Now, for the most part, the fee is 15%. Excuse me, really quickly. Let me go back. Sorry about that. So the fee that's being proposed is approximately 15% of the maximum allowable for all land uses, with the exception of retail, which is being proposed at 6% in the first year and 7% in the second year, 12% for maximum. And then years after years 1 and 2, we will continue with applying what's called the construction cost index increase, and that's an automatic increase every year. So that column number 3, the 2022-23 rate, is what's before you this evening. In total, over the 10-year, this is what that fee would generate, approximately $162 million. 20%, which would be local return to source, which would go back to the managing agency of the said projects. 1% is held out for admin. And then I'd like to point out that of the top 16 projects, the cost is over $1 billion. So you can see that what we're generating in revenue estimate, it's just to support these projects. It's not paying for these projects. It's basically a subsidy for these projects. So you can see at the very bottom, the 14 million there, that's going towards the remaining commitments in our current funding plan. Community informational meetings, we did hold 2 in February and March, where the BIA attended, as well as other entities. Bike East Bay was very vocal in those as well. We went over the Nexus study, what we've done to date, the draft SEP and the draft funding plans to get their comment and feedback on those as well. So the next steps, again, those meetings were held back in the winter. TVTC approved the SEP, the funding plan, and the fee rates back in April at a public hearing of the TVTC. The third one here is what's happening this evening, asking the member agencies to adopt the fee rates. And as Mayor Arnerich mentioned, Danville is first out of the gate with this. And then ultimately on July 1st, the new fee implementation would take effect. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Great, Andrew. Thank you for that. It sounds complicated. Bottom line is these are building impact fees. The good news is there was nobody that was against these fee changes, but it takes a long time to go through the justifications of these. The building trades, since they did not have an issue with these, everybody came to one conclusion that it was a very reasonable approach. And for once, it seems to be a great consensus among all 5 cities and the 2 counties that are involved. So any questions at this time? Renee.
Thank you. Just real quick, I know that we talked about this before, but the Vasco Road, which was the earmarked area for, what was it, 10A, 10B, how close are they now to funding that? Or is it still just a placeholder for the future?
Great, thanks for the question, Councilmember Morgan. So looking at the funding plan here, it looks like it's moving forward in fiscal year 23, 24, 24, 25, 25, 26.
Okay, because they've had that written down before. I just wanted to confirm, and if it doesn't happen, to make sure that we're taking a look at that and keeping an eye on it, because those funds could obviously be better utilized someplace else if we're able to do that. But great report. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Renee. Any other questions before we go? Dave Fawn?
Yeah, thanks. Hey, Andy, quick question. Taking a look at the spreadsheet there. Does that take into account the housing element and the expectations of each of the jurisdictions? And I guess if it does or does not, does it now require an escalation, right, to get to the numbers quicker? Because obviously this is infrastructure, and if we're expected to build X number of homes in the valley, how do we support it with infrastructure commensurate with the number of homes that are being built?
Thank you, Councilmember Fong. Good question. So our Nexus study was done prior to the RHNA numbers coming out. So it was essentially, it's gone through the process already. So we did not want to go back and have to reopen that full Nexus study just based on any new numbers that came out. So the numbers were generated and looked at the staff level. So all the planning departments reviewed their respective jurisdictions for land use forecast. So we feel pretty good and confident that they're more reflective of what's really forecasted for the next 10 years.
Great, thank you. Any other questions before we open the public hearing? Okay, at this time, is there anybody who is an attendee who would like to make a comment on this item? If so, please use the virtual raise hand feature at the lower part of your screen in Zoom, and we will call on you. I do not see any. Marie, do you see any hands raised?
There are no requests to speak on this item, nor did the town receive any written public comment that was not already provided to the town council.
Okay. At this time, then we will close the public hearing and the item is back for discussion action by the council. Karen, you want to unmute? Sorry.
I'm sorry, when you're ready for a motion, I'd be happy to make the motion, having served on this along with some other of you have served different years. This is a massive undertaking. It used to be an agency that had to have unanimity for any action it took. So the fact that Newell's been serving on that and presenting this as something that is already unanimous is a great step.
Yeah. Thank you.
And
So
Renee,
if that's a motion, is there a second? A second by, oh, I'm sorry, Renee, did you get a second or did you want to talk?
Yes, no, second.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved by Councilmember Stepper, seconded by Councilmember Morgan. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Marie, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Fong?
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan?
Yes.
Councilmember Stepper?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Storer?
Yes.
And Mayor Arnerich.
Aye.
Resolution 41-2022 was approved unanimously.
Okay, great. Andrew, thank you so much. And I know the other jurisdictions are going to be excited to know Danville kicked this off. Okay, now let's wake Jill Bergman up. Hello, Jill. It is now 3:30 in the morning for her. And
Good morning.
we're going to get her awake here. And we're really excited. And I know there's several people who are with us tonight who want to hear this presentation. This is under item 9.1. And this is a presentation by SWA Group of the draft strategies recommended for the Downtown Master Plan update. And Joe, are you going to start us off, or Ty?
Ty.
Ty is going to start. Ty, okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. In recognition of the fact that Jill is in a completely and very different time zone, I'm happy to introduce this topic this evening. I'm here with our design team, and it is our tremendous pleasure to present the preliminary placemaking strategies associated with the Downtown Master Plan update. And for those in the audience who may not be as familiar, the overarching goal for this project is really to reimagine the future downtown, especially our outdoor spaces, particularly in a post-COVID era where community spaces are significantly more cherished for the connections that they foster. The project approach really is to build upon the original 1986 Downtown Master Plan rather than to disregard it, and also to fold in all of the forward planning efforts that have taken place in all of the intervening years. As council's familiar, this project has a very tight time schedule, and it's because, one, we wanted to make sure that any of the outreach that we do for this project doesn't inadvertently overlap with or confuse the housing element. And secondly, we are hopeful to surface some projects that could potentially be constructed within the very strict timing constraints of the ARPA funding. And so in the last 9 months, the project team has really analyzed the entirety of the downtown with a fresh set of eyes. We've conducted an extensive community outreach effort. And finally, after a lot of listening and processing, the design team was able to surface the first iteration of these concepts that you'll hear about tonight with our commissioners back in March. And the feedback from our commissions is what was used to refine what will be presented to the town council. So this evening, our main objective is to get the council's feedback. We're not asking for any sort of official action, but just initial feedback. Specifically, are there projects that are higher on the priority list? Are there projects that perhaps we should contemplate and kind of take on a parallel track and refine more immediately so we can take advantage of ARPA funding? Are there projects perhaps that should come off the list? And so with that, and before I turn it over to Andrew, I do want to set public expectations just a little bit based on the concepts you'll hear tonight, because the Downtown Master Plan is a long-range planning document. Anything that has to do with more interim measures like parklets haven't been contemplated as part of this presentation. But as council members noted in an earlier meeting, they could be used as the foundation for additional conversations as a separate agenda topic somewhere down the line. So with that, I'll turn the presentation over to Andrew.
Andrew, welcome. Thanks for being so patient. And Jill, thank you as well.
Great. Thank you, Ty, Honorable Mayor, Town Council. It's a pleasure to be before you here. I'm going to share my screen. Everybody should see this full screen
Perfect.
now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just wanted to review the process real quick with you before we jump into the specific projects. We have done some site analysis. We've done several meetings already with town council or commissions. And we've conducted a whole series of different community outreach efforts, which I'll touch on in just a moment. We are currently kind of in this May 17th meeting. We will be coming back to you with specific draft document and a final document that you'll have opportunities to comment on. And as Ty said, we're really focused today on the placemaking strategies and the projects that have come out of those strategies. So You know, Ty also mentioned that the feedback that we're really looking for is some of your preferences. Are there priorities? Are there projects that should be fast tracked and be considered for ARPA funds? That would kind of help us in our scheduling and how we move parts of this plan forward. The focus of the plan is really historic downtown. We are looking at a larger downtown boundary in the complete plan, but our focus for these strategies and projects has really been the historic downtown area. We did get quite a bit of community feedback through the project website, a community survey, community pop-up events. We also had 2 stakeholder interviews with local businesses, landowners, Chamber of Commerce. And we had several times where we met with the town council and or commissions. These all kind of led into 6 strategies that we identified for downtown. And those are to increase public gathering space, to curate programs within the public realm, within those public gathering spaces, to strengthen trail connections. Iron Horse Trail and the Creek are really 2 great assets that we want to tap into even more within downtown. To enhance the ambiance. Lighting is an obvious way there, but there may be other ways to enhance the ambiance, street furnishings and such that can add to the amenities downtown. Expanding town signage and activating underutilized spaces. And so you'll see all of those present in the projects we've chosen. We did present a draft version of this just a few weeks ago to several of the commissions. And I just wanted to touch on some of their feedback because we've taken some of that and tried to make some revisions for today's presentation that should hopefully address some of the comments and concerns that they may have had. Overall, positive feedback that the proposed strategies aligned with Danville's character. There's a lot of support for some tree grates that are in the plan, both for future and existing trees. You'll see we have some ideas about the intersection design. And so there was some discussion about how that could aid in traffic safety, a strong desire to designate spaces for art elements and family amenities. Like the idea of strengthening connections through Church Street towards the town green and creek. In Commission enjoyed strategies and projects that could be a catalyst for the envisioned arts district. How can we support that through this plan? So some of the kind of specific quotes that we pulled out was to consider integrating art into functional elements. Mosaic benches is a perfect example of that. Jill can tell us some about that because Barcelona has great mosaics. There's also a concern about a loss of parking. So discussion of the trade-offs, if we're providing more gathering space for parking, is that a proper balance? And then, there's just a great recognition that there is no place like Danville. Danville is very special, and these ideas suit the town, which was great to hear. And in large, we would like to say, Danville has a great framework currently. And so it's been great to work from such a strong foundation. And I think the projects that we're going to go through, you'll see some ideas where we hope we can really even take that to a whole nother level. So these are the 8 projects that I'm going to discuss with you today. And I'm going to go through these fairly quickly. There's a lot of content here, and I'm happy to kind of come back in Q&A to go and dive deeper into these, but I want to kind of get through them so that we can get to your comments and questions. So the first is Harts Avenue, sidewalk expansion, basically between Linda Mesa and Prospect is our focus area. A Church Street Plaza extending from Railroad Avenue to all the way to the theater. Theater Plaza itself, so kind of an extension of that same space, but maybe kind of a project in itself. Some town green improvements, and we'll be focused on some additional improvements that the town green already has a great overall plan, which we support. These are some kind of further ideas. Creek Trail extension in E, some Danville Monumentation ideas in G, which are somewhat dispersed. And then lighting enhancements, which again is kind of a dispersed idea, and we'll show you our ideas on a map for that as well. There are other projects that have been identified that we're not losing track of. both in discussions with town council, commissions, ideas presented by the public and stakeholders. And so we've kind of cataloged these and kept these in here, but they're not something that we're going to dive into specifically this evening. So the first is a Harts Avenue sidewalk expansion. We've broken this into two areas. It's a long stretch, and to show it on these slides, there's an area 1, which is basically north of Diablo, and an area 2, which is between Diablo and Prospect. And so this first area here is area 1. This is from Diablo on the right, so north is to the left of this plan, Linda Mesa there on the left. And the idea of this project is kind of twofold. One is to create a raised intersection at Linda Mesa, and you'll see that we're proposing several of these raised intersections, which can become a theme along Harts and aid in some of the traffic safety measures. And then we are also expanding the sidewalk along Harts Avenue, and this provides a lot more gathering space in this area. We are diagramming and keeping track of some of the elements that are being improved or lost. And so in this case, the yellow dots here are some specialty lighting elements that we want to place along Harts. And then we are also proposing to remove some parking spots along Harts Avenue. This is a section that's showing the existing condition on Harts and the new proposed section with the expanded sidewalk. In the southern part of our project area here, this is between now Diablo and Prospect Avenue, there is an area where we have kind of two options. So here, there are certain site constraints, and so we are kind of trying to work around some of those. We're still doing some investigations. We want to expand as much of the sidewalk as possible. This option is looking at a partial expansion, and so you can see that expansion kind of mid-block and closest to Prospect Avenue with a large area against the current plaza by Starbucks. The second option envisions expanding the entire sidewalk. So similar to north of Diablo, the entire sidewalk is expanded in this area. Specialty lighting added. Again, a similar section here where the parking areas are used for that expansion of the sidewalk and the drive aisles are maintained. A diagram of parking that's lost in the first option. The additional lighting, the trees, as well as additional parking lost in the second option.
Excuse me, is that the background noise? Is that Karen? Is that yours?
That is probably my background noise.
Okay.
Excuse me, just a moment here.
Oh, that's okay. See if we could control it.
Sorry about that. This is the raised intersection at Prospect. So this is a 3D view that is showing the intersection. And what this is doing is raising the kind of a speed table up at the intersection. And there are now crosswalks that are flush. So usually when you go to a crosswalk, there's a curb ramp. You kind of go down to the street level, across the street, and then raise back up to the sidewalk level. And what this raised intersection does is allow for that crossing to be completely flush. It's actually kind of a nicer walking surface, more pedestrian friendly, and really prioritizes the pedestrian over the automobiles, creates a reason for cars to slow down. They realize they're entering into more of a pedestrian zone before then exiting back out onto kind of a more typical street condition. This kind of does have a slowing effect on the cars. There are planting areas that provide some protection at certain corners and strips that define when you're entering into a street area versus the sidewalk. A couple more views of Hearts, both along kind of the length of Hearts and another kind of ground level shot at Prospect. Church Street Plaza, second project. So this one, we are doing something similar with the intersection. So this is a raised intersection. And then we are envisioning expanding sidewalks. At this intersection, there are some drainage issues. And so there may be an alternative that we need to consider that is more of a flush condition or an at grade. And so we will explore that as we get more detail in the site conditions. And in addition on this project, we're also envisioning retractable bollards that could close church temporarily for different events. Here's a section, kind of similar idea of expanding the sidewalk, maintaining the drive aisles. This is at the kind of the plaza on the eastern side of the site, which is to the right in this drawing. Additionally, we have some ideas about market lighting that would cross over the sidewalks in this condition. The pink areas are showing the parking that would be removed with this expansion of the sidewalk. A kind of low aerial showing that raised intersection. And then a ground level shot. In all of these that you've seen so far, we are also proposing tree grates. You can kind of see those here, and that is both a tree grate in each of the tree conditions, also widening those planter areas for the trees, which will give them more kind of aeration and healthier root system, but then using the tree grate to maintain and actually increase the walkable surface. Theater Plaza, our third project. And so this is a smaller site here. And you can see that we really want to bring some energy and the opportunity for events to occur in this space. It is currently a parking area, and we envision that it could remain so, but that this could be temporarily closed down to really activate and use the space on a fairly regular basis if desired. So retractable bollards that would allow that to occur. Specialty paving across this whole space that would define it as a different from the rest of the parking lot, create a more pedestrian scale to the space. This is a kind of the base view without any of that activation occurring.
And Andrew, can I ask you a favor? Can you go back to the plan view? And the reason why is I'll go back one more there. Maybe next time you do this, can you make sure you label the buildings? You and I read plans really well. Yes. That diagram there, most people don't know that theater is on that side there.
Yeah, this is the theater building,
right?
Town meeting hall and the restaurant.
And part of Bridget. Yeah, just maybe next time to do that would help. You guys are good at this, but thank you. Please go ahead.
Great comment. I don't think I've also mentioned, you'll notice that we've also begun to estimate costs, and you'll see that on the lower right of all these diagrams showing kind of what level of cost each of these projects are estimated at, and we have a kind of a summation matrix at the end that will exhibit some of that as well. So an idea of kind of market lighting across this space. We are taking just a couple parking spots away here to add an additional planting area, market lights across, and an aerial view of what that might look like. Again, the theater on the right-hand side, restaurant here on the left, looking kind of towards the creek. And then just dropping down to ground level. So town green improvements. As I said, there's already a great plan for improving the town green. This was just done in 2019. We think there's a lot of great things that are proposed here. One area that we did have some thoughts on was, is there a way to actually engage the creek edge in a more significant way? And so we've just kind of added an element. There are already kind of a lot of elements that you can see with different numbers on here. And we've just said maybe there should be one more that really engages the creek and helps to bolster that creek trail. And so this is this creek overlook terrace. So it's a deck and kind of terrace that comes a little bit lower along the creek edge, looks out over the creek space, and allows a good view along that corridor. So here's another view of that. A little sitting area along the creek. Kind of paired with that idea is a creek trail extension. We're very interested in how this can extend along the entire edge of the creek, and there are opportunities there, but still some property considerations to work out in some spots. But there's an area on Front Street where Front Street comes right up to the creek's edge. This is south of Diablo, and there's opportunity here to actually create a frontage for the town right on the creek. And so this concept looks at using some of the parking in one instance along the creek, and then cantilevering a deck on another portion of Front to connect all the way up to Diablo. Again, some specialty lighting along Front Street, and some additional kind of overlook seating areas, potentially one tying into a future creek trail to the south. The section where we can use the parking is here. So this is kind of the southern section where we can use this parking on the right-hand side of Front Street as you're traveling north to add that creek trail. And then the section where there's a right-hand turn lane onto Diablo, we're using a cantilever deck to create that trail connection. Measuring the parking. And what's lost there, where lighting occurs, how the trees work. A view of what that might look like. Prospect Avenue. This is kind of our last big street concept. And so for Prospect, this ties into Hearts, where we have that raised table. And then extends to Front. And this is one part of Danville that we think is really special. There's kind of a great pedestrian character to the street. That the street is small. I know that can that oftentimes can be hard as a vehicle because of how small the street is, but it creates kind of a great slowness of traffic and makes it kind of a very kind of intimate scale for the pedestrian. However, the north side of Prospect actually does not have any trees and actually has a pretty small sidewalk, while the south side of Prospect actually has a wider sidewalk and a bit of a tree canopy. And so we want to actually improve the north side of Prospect to kind of help kind of give it a little bit more of the same character that the south side has. And so both concepts here do kind of a very similar physical move, but we've explored some different ways of dealing with the traffic pattern. And so this is option A, looks at expanding the sidewalk and leaving the road two-way. So kind of keeps the similar set of travel lanes, kind of small travel lanes, but uses the parking on the north side to expand that sidewalk and create a place for trees. This does cause a fair amount of loss of parking on Prospect, but maintains that two-way traffic. We also explored a second option that rather than removing the parking, we actually removed one of the lanes of travel. And so in this option, the sidewalk is expanded on the northern side, but traffic is now one way, and we're able to maintain all of the parking. And so you can see identical kind of spatial section, but striped differently. So that the parking simply moves kind of where the pink is, parking moves to where the orange is. The shot of this two-way, almost identical, just restriping, and we can maintain the parking on the street if traffic just goes one way. On Prospect, we have another kind of catenary lighting idea where the lights are run parallel to the street. To kind of improve the ambiance and character in the evening. Some ground level views. Okay, Danville Monumentation. So here we just have a couple ideas for consideration. One is that there could certainly be a permanent gateway monument that could be located near where the existing banner is. It could be considered in one or more locations, and that could also be paired with or just use kind of gateway monuments that are pylons on the sides of roads. We really like the idea of marking these entry points. There's already some monumentation kind of north and south. We also think that there should be some monumentation as you're crossing Diablo or crossing on Diablo over the creek. And finally, lighting enhancements. So here we kind of wanted to take a holistic look at how lighting is used within downtown. And so we've taken the approach that on Hearts in front, we want to have kind of more specialty lighting. So these are elements that kind of mark different points along the journey on Hearts in front, whereas on Linda Mesa, Prospect, and Church, we use kind of a series of different string lighting, extending also into the theater plaza, doing kind of parallel lighting on Prospect and diagonal lighting just over the sidewalks on Church in Linda Mesa. We can actually cross over the entire space in the theater plaza. That's harder to do over street areas where we're kind of maintaining that system over an active street is difficult. And so we think this would give a very distinctive character to how lighting is dealt with. You kind of have these different uses of market lighting kind of on your east-west streets, and then a more kind of specialty marking moments on your north-south streets. So those are the projects. Looking forward to discussing those with you and getting your feedback. We will be taking your feedback, putting these projects and all of the additional pieces we've been working on into a draft downtown master plan document, and then coming back to present those to you by August. We'll then take your feedback, produce a final document for adoption, hopefully in September.
Great, Andrew, thank you. Wow, a lot to digest, but some very exciting things there. So let's do this first, since this is a public hearing item. Let's just focus on questions only at this point. If you have any specific questions of Andrew versus any comments or indicating direction, and then we will go to the public that's still here, hear their comments, and then bring it back for an open discussion after we've heard all that. Does that sound fine for everybody? Okay, anybody have any questions at this point? Dave, Fong, Ben, or Robert, and then Karen.
Okay, thank you. And Andrew, this is just one question, which is we are seeing a significant growth of cyclists in the Danville area, and more specifically around the downtown area. How did you accommodate or envision cyclists and in your plan?
Yeah, so I think that's a great point, and we know that Iron Horse Trail is a great asset for cyclists right now. We'd like to kind of extend that by providing that creek trail, right? So that creek trail could be kind of a secondary cyclist route around downtown, and then we really see all of the streets themselves as slower streets. And being able to share the road with cyclists, we'd certainly want to increase, bike parking opportunities to bring your bike downtown, have a safe place to keep it while you enjoy the amenities downtown. But it's really those two parallel trails that allow you to kind of easily permeate into the rest of downtown.
Great, thank you.
Robert and
yeah, thank you, Andrew. Excellent report, outstanding. Yeah, bicycle safety naturally is really important. So, to tag on to David's question, I know that we're trying to move people over to the Iron Horse Trail, but I'm not sure if that's realistic. People love driving. When we did our bicycle study, what we found was what we all knew. Everybody drives down Hearts, they come back Railroad, they stop at Pete's Coffee, they're downtown. I really don't want to pull people that are enjoying downtown onto the trail when the downtown is what they'd like to go with. So I don't know how we factor all that in, because some of the slides and the options, it would work. And the other options, it probably would not, or it would force bicyclists to be in the same path of travel as a car. So something we should at least look at. And then, I know you focused on all the main streets, and I appreciate that. We're starting big, but we got to work to the small part as well and the details. So when I'm on Harts and I take a little shortcut to go to the parking lot, or through the shortcut through the Vets Hall, or down to get to Front Street, I look at that as being like, I don't know, let's just use a term that we're all familiar with, tiny flourishes. What am I going to see when I do that pathway? What's going to stimulate me when I'm walking? So those kind of things I think we need to look at. And if you have a response, it'd be great. But the question is, what are you including the shortcuts in there? Yeah, I have to get to my question.
Yeah. Let's try to do questions. I get it. You want to get in first. I get it. So the question is there, and that long diatribe, sorry, was what happened to all of those beautiful little connections that some need to be improved, some work well now. And Andrew, what happened there?
Yeah, so I think on the, I kind of showed you at the beginning a slide that was pretty much this slide, and then a second slide that showed kind of all these other projects that are not less important, but just not the focus of what we're looking at right now. And so I think many of those are cataloged in that second slide. And if there are not some there, we can certainly work to get any other of those connections kind of, in memorialized to be looked at as part of the plan.
Okay, great. Renee, and then Karen, any questions?
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for the report. I wanted to ask you, I know that Starbucks, and if Jill's still on the call at 4:00 now in the morning, but I know Starbucks on our last report mentioned that they were doing a remodel and expansion, and they have a small area out front. We're looking at incorporating that area as well. What are we doing to talk to the businesses so when they are doing these expansions, whether it be interior, exterior, that we're incorporating that along with it?
I can just jump in real quick on that one. For Starbucks, the only thing that they're doing right now is just rebranding the title, because it used to be a Starbucks Reserve. So they're just going back to a Starbucks Regular. So they have pretty much completed what they already have done. They've changed like menus and boards and stuff inside, and they're not looking to do anything expansion wise at this time. But what we'll probably be doing as part of this process and as we move forward is, as new projects come forward wanting to redevelop or do anything different, that we'll be looking at those types of opportunities of how can we enhance some of these additional spaces, like if there are opportunities on the private properties to get some more of those public activated spaces and incorporate them into the design, similar to what we did with the clock tower as well as Primo's Pizza.
Great. Thank you. And then the light enhancing concept that you mentioned, Andrew, with the string lighting and the different types of lighting and all that. My question is one of the things I didn't see was the possibility, since we're adding so many trees, is utilizing the trees with lights rather than having the string lights where people can actually, hit them or whatever it may be. If they're in the tree, it seems as though they might be a little safer, but I just wanted to get your view on that.
Yeah, lights on trees look great. They are very unhealthy for the trees, anything permanent. And so we want to avoid kind of using that as a permanent solution for providing that lighting. It's a great, festive lighting, holiday lighting, but as a permanent solution, we'd like to see a proper kind of healthy solution for that.
Okay. That makes sense. I did not know that. So
thank you. Okay.
And then and one more question. I'm sorry, Noel, as my dogs are barking. Andrew, my dogs are going to bark. Yours are going to answer, because mine were answering yours as you were barking earlier. So it was an interesting concept. One thing I didn't see was the gathering places. You talked about expanding sidewalks. What about the benches and the seating areas along there? I didn't see that.
Yes, good question. So that is part of the plan that we will be coming back to you with, is a kind of streetscape palette that will identify, benches, trash cans, other amenities and elements like that for those gathering places.
Great. I'll wait for my other comments till the end.
Thank you. Karen?
Okay. I have 3 questions, I think. The first one is, have you got a plan in any way for something to recoup some of the losses that you've marked in pink for the lost parking? Because we had a lot of parking loss with bicycles as well, and I needed you to consider that as well.
We do not have a specific idea of where to replace those parking spots. Our current thought right now is that a lot of the town right now has parklets in it, which are using parking spots, and people have generally appreciated having that additional outdoor gathering space. And so we believe that there's enough parking elsewhere in downtown that the additional public gathering space is worth it.
Okay, thank you. The second question has to do with Prospect more than anything, because I need to have more information. And I don't know how you're going to provide that with respect to 2 drive lanes. I understand that. And, it is a narrow street, but people get to, when they drive by, they see the stores. If they can't park there, they'll still get to see the stores if they're going both ways. So I need to understand the impact of not doing that, because we don't have very many crossways in town. So are you going to do something on the traffic patterns and the impact on the stores of having the 2-way versus 1-way?
Right. So 1-way would potentially be somewhat less traffic, but it would still be a traveled street and used within how you circulate through your downtown. We don't have an exact idea of like a difference in trip counts that would mean. However, a wider sidewalk would mean more pedestrians that could also be passing those stores.
I think,
Thank
Andrew,
you.
Karen, let me just add to that. I think, Andrew, part of the question is, and there's a supposition of this, that in rural areas like ours, 1-way streets like that help some businesses and kill others. So there's a lot of evidence in that. This is not urban. This doesn't meet Walnut Creek. There's a lot of reasons for that. So I think that's what she was asking. Is there what are those trade-offs, to be absolutely transparent about them and not just say, oh, here's a design option or not a design. There's a lot that goes along with making that a 1-way street. So I think that's the question. So you don't have to answer that now, but it's to come back later and just put it out on the table.
No, thank you, Newell, for expanding that. And my third question, it seemed to ignore, I didn't see anything along the creek. And we all know that there's like 5 properties along the creek, one of which we took action on tonight, the one we own, and that there's 2 of them for sale. So I'm concerned, have we considered that creek area in the pictures you have here? And if not, I need to understand, is there a possibility of buying any of those properties in your proposal? Or are we just talking about north of those 5 homes, north of the theater to Diablo?
Getting access to, whether you buy them or are able to work out an easement, through the maintenance bench that already exists there. There are several, I think, opportunities or options for creating that connection. But yeah, that would be excellent. And what you're talking about is kind of along these properties here, which we did not focus on as a project here. We focus kind of north where you do control.
Andrew, but the question is, we're not, what they propose doesn't affect those other property owners.
Okay.
All north of that property.
Okay, so I guess I'd say, since that's been on our CIP for a long time, it seems like they should in some way incorporate that in what our presentations to consider.
That's correct. And if I could just jump in here to help Andrew out. I do know that one of the proposed developments, there is going to be a condition of approval that would secure an easement for the town for that trail. And since there's another one that's going to be for sale, and if those subsequent lots develop, we would secure a similar easement that will help us kind of connect the dots, so to speak.
Perfect.
Okay, sorry. So I guess I'm just asking, when you come back, can you do something to consider this in your final documents?
Yes, it is definitely in the final document. It's just not identified here as a project because it's not a short-term opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Those were my 3 questions. Thank you, Noel.
Okay. And Joe, did you want to add something? And I saw David had his hand up too.
Yeah, Ty basically indicated what I was going to say about acquiring the easements over time.
Okay. And David, anything else you want to add?
Yes, I think I was going to respond to the easement. So
Everybody's paying attention. Poor Jill is the one trying to stay awake. And wow, you guys are here.
I was going to add that too.
Yeah, okay. Councilmember or Vice Mayor Storage, did you have another question?
I do. Just yes, of course. Can you just walk us through the cost and how you approach the cost when you're in your final document? Well, let's do it this way. Are you providing costs in your final document?
We are providing a probable estimate of costs for each of these projects, and we have kind of done a draft ourselves. Right now we're just this is a matrix of the different projects and kind of how we're ranking them against the different priorities that we set up, the different strategies that we set up, and then the costs are on the right. So this is kind of a good summary of some of those costs. And those are, generally, let's say, each of those dollar signs is $1 million. Yeah, not exactly. And we're fine tuning that and working with the city to, test and work through some of our costs right now. But the idea is that we will have some numbers to share.
So an $18 million menu right there. So,
yeah.
Okay. Wow. That just took our breath away. Okay. Any other questions before we go to the public hearing? Okay, Dave. Sorry.
Yeah, Andrew, a question I have, and I believe that Railroad Avenue was not in scope with what you were looking at, but we recognize that Railroad offered a different vibe than Hearts, and I guess my question is, when you took a look at Hearts, did you also take a look at Railroad and what its potential would be to complement Hearts?
We did look at Railroad. It is within kind of the larger scope. It is not, where we have chosen to focus on, because we do see it, more as the vehicular oriented street, even though it does have some great pedestrian character along it as well. And so, we just decided that the projects that we saw in the near term should be more in the core. There are projects that are identified along Railroad, I think especially by where the farmers market is being held. There's some great opportunities there around the museum to do some things. There are some widening areas around intersections that could be done.
Okay, thank you.
Great. So still on the list, just not the high priority as
right.
Okay. Great. All right. Well, let's do this. Let's go to a public hearing at this point, and we will go to attendees. So if you would like to speak, please use your virtual raise hand feature in Zoom, and we will call on you. And we look forward to your comments. We do ask you to hold to 3 minutes of comments. And it looks like our first speaker is none other than Doug Offenhartz, who's a property owner and a former council member. Doug, welcome.
Hi, I'm not sure it's working. Do you hear me?
It's working. We hear you.
Okay, great. Well, great presentation. I'm very impressed. I guess I have three major concerns. The Harts Avenue lighting. I understand Andrew's comment that it's not healthy for the trees, but I think a lot of us were hoping that the trees would be lighted. And I'd like to know more about what you have in mind. The sketch that I saw wasn't very impressive, a little disappointing. And so I'd like to know more about that. Just a quick comment there. I do have a concern about the loss of parking. People who are going to a restaurant are more likely to park in one of the city lots and walk to the restaurant, but I think that's less true for the retail, so that's a concern. And I know Ty said we're not addressing the issue of the existing outdoor parking that outdoor dining the restaurants have, but it seems like it's pretty hard to avoid that issue because it's becoming kind of, I don't know, it's going to be hard to make it go away. And I guess I'm disappointed that you're not addressing that issue in your planning, because it looks like the plans basically, except for a few areas, the Church Street Plaza, do make it go away. I'm not opposed to it going away, but it seems like there's a challenge of it may not ever go away. So those are my three concerns, but otherwise I'm very impressed with the effort that you all have made.
Great. Thank you, Doug. We appreciate that. Is there anybody else here who would like to speak? Please raise your virtual raise hand feature and we will call on you. Okay, I'm going to say that. Okay, Eric. Eric, welcome.
I'm Newell. Can you hear me?
We can.
Good. I'm also concerned about the loss of parking. But one of the things that was very important is there is a handicap spot in front of the Veterans Building, and it looks like that would get lost. That would not be good. We have a lot of handicapped veterans that use that one space. I do believe that the loading zone on Prospect was maintained, and that also is important for a lot of the events and things like that we have at the Vets Hall. So I'm hoping you'll maintain that loading zone for that purpose. I do like the trail idea along the creek. Hopefully someday it can be extended a lot farther. It's a nice little creek, but it's there's a lot of maintenance that needs to be done, all along that creek as it flows through Danville. So hopefully that can be added in at some point. That's it. Thank you.
Great, Eric Cardell. Thank you so much for your comments. We appreciate that. Really good points. Okay, and now we'll go to Chris. Chris, welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Captain Sherry, how are you doing?
I'm doing
Yes,
okay, Mayor. Thank you for taking my question. Well, it's not a question because it's just comments. My concern is about pedestrian safety, specifically out on in front of the Starbucks. I see a lot of near misses and I've seen collisions there. I don't recall seeing in the sketches or hear about it any of the little flashing lights, the reflectors on the ground. So when pedestrians are crossing the streets, they would flash and cars could see them and allow them to safely cross. I hope some type of pedestrian safety in the high traffic areas is a consideration. And then my second comment is about, I have some concerns about adding one-way streets downtown. It may be intuitive if you're going in the right direction, but when you're facing where you cannot go, I see people being confused and then going the wrong way on a one-way street, and that could cause tons of other incidents. So I would refrain from something like that unless it's properly marked and intuitive, but then that could be very unsightly. So those are my two concerns. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Captain Sherry. We appreciate your comments. Is there anybody else who would like to make any public comments at this time? This is your opportunity. Please raise your virtual hand. Michelle Landis. Michelle, welcome back. Michelle, you want to unmute and then we could hear you.
Can you hear me now?
We can. Michelle,
Okay.
welcome back. Thank you.
Thank you for having me and thank you all. I too am a little bit, I think the plan looks great as far as making the downtown more welcoming with the lighting and gathering spaces. I love that. I'm a little concerned about parking for retailers because having been a retailer downtown, parking is always an issue. So that, and I agree with the gentleman who spoke before me about the one-way streets. That seems, I can see it in big cities, but in Danville, it just seems a little unintuitive. The other thing I'm curious about is they said the people who presented this said that they had taken a lot of input from property owners downtown, and we were never contacted by anyone for our input. And we're on the corner of Hearts and Church. So I'm curious where the input came from because we were never contacted as property owners. So That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Michelle, thank you. Again, we appreciate you being here and your comments, and we'll get answers. We'll answer any questions we have at the end here. Okay, is there anybody else here who would like to make comments this time? Please use your virtual raise hand feature and we'll call on you. Okay, this is going to be your last chance. Anybody? I know we've been here for a couple of hours, but last chance if there's anybody else before we take it back and close the public comment period on this. Okay, seeing no further hands raised, we're going to close the public comment on this, and the item will come back to the council. And first, let's go over a couple of things. Lighting, and maybe Andrew, and we'll have Andrew and Ty and or Jill. I think just to be clear, the lighting options were on the slide that you had showed strung lights and things like that, a lot of festive type lighting. Those are all considerations, right? It's not just, I know you kind of said one style on one street or something, but those all look great and they have an opportunity in a small area that they could work. So I think somebody said they'd like to see more lighting, and I think the answer is probably going to hear from the council, from all of us, yes, more lighting. Loss of parking, that's absolutely. There is a really good point brought up by two retailers, and they're both property owners, is about loss of parking for retail is very different in the pattern of a restaurant. Restaurant, you're going to be there 2-3 hours. You're going to walk around, and that's part of both pre and post dinner. That is something I don't think we need to solve here. But I think we need to keep that high on the list, that there is a difference. While it may offer some more outdoor space, there's a trade-off, and being conscious of that. Maybe it's on one side of the street, not on the other. Eric Ardell from the Veterans group also mentioned about that handicap space. We do have to be conscious. It's the only handicap space in the downtown, by the way. The only other one is over on Front Street, and that wasn't proposed to be touched. So we would have to address that in some way, and that's also a local requirement. And I think maybe Andrew or Ty, you could address about the safety at the intersection in front of Starbucks at Prospect. I think it probably didn't have enough detail, but that's a raised platform bringing in. So it's almost like having speed hump, but it's a speed
Yes.
cable.
And it still has all of our lighting systems that have to be redone, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And one of the reasons why Andrew's illustrations don't have all of the details is because I think Andrew's concerned that it would mar his illustration. But yes, part of the fine tuning of all of the cost estimates will include all of the signs, striping, pedestrian safety measures. Right. It is very high priority on our list.
Okay. And then kind of the last area was, Andrew, can you talk about who you contacted, how you went about it, as Michelle Landis mentioned that they weren't contacted. So what was the methodology, which property owners were contacted, and how did that work?
I think this one might be better for Jill to respond.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I can take that. When we were developing kind of the whole stakeholders and our whole outreach plan, we had multiple phases for this plan. As you recall, we started off with a community-wide survey, which went to everyone in the community. And that was an opportunity for all of our landowners, our property owners, our customers to be able to provide input regarding the project on that. And that was open for 6 weeks at the beginning of the year. We also then started looking at our stakeholder groups, and we pulled, through working with the Chamber of Commerce, as well as just some of our local businesses, kind of looking at opportunities of who we would pull together to be part of these stakeholder discussions. We had multiple stakeholder groups. There are a couple of stakeholder groups that we had different workshops. Knowing that we can't have every single owner involved, that's why we did the whole public outreach with the survey as well as the other community meetings. It was more of the stakeholders were a mixture that was made up of property owners, business owners, leasing agents, chamber members as well, and also residents that could be active in those workshops that were held as well. So
Okay.
those are part of some are public outreach areas. So yeah, so there were situations where there could have been a perceived, the perception that there wasn't an ability because of how the timing happened.
Right. So the takeaway, from
Yes.
this is one of our touch points. And
Mhm,
as
correct.
Michelle and Doug Offenhartz, this is the opportunities we go forward to continue to get input. And as well as we'll be sharing publicly on our website all of the plans as things start to develop to solicit that input. So this isn't a one-stop shop. We're moving on to make decisions. This
Yeah,
is
actually, no,
first-
I'd like to also add to today for this particular meeting, it was really important that we did notify all the property owners because it was the first time before the council. And because of the physical improvements, we really wanted their outreach. So that's where Michelle received the notification today, in addition to our businesses, which is what our typical standard is.
Right. And thank you for that. It's a good point. That we did do a complete public notification in the entire downtown. So, okay, great. So I think Ty or Jill, did you see any questions we didn't answer that we heard from public?
Let's take a look. The
Yes.
comments about one-way streets duly noted.
Yeah, that wasn't a.
Yeah,
those are
it's
comments.
duly noted. It's one of those where we wanted to offer the council different options to consider. And if the council should choose to pursue a one-way street, we would follow up with a more kind of a detailed analysis of circulation impacts. Similarly, with regard to on-street parking, particularly on Harts Avenue, it's another reason why we chose to introduce two options for the council's consideration, because we do know that on-street parking is very important to retailers. So, pluses and minuses, how do we balance both, right? And
Okay.
so depending on where the council goes, we'll pursue that.
Okay, so now let's go to, thank you for that. Let's go to council members and we'll start with Karen Stepper.
Okay, just one more minor kind of question, because I came up in what was being said about the signage. And you're right, these are pretty cleaned up diagrams. And I'm looking at in particular, the Diablo Prospect and Harts intersection, where you have a raised intersection. And I was hoping with the beautiful shrubbery and the raising of the light that we wouldn't have these ugly flashing signs that are up there way above my head all over the place. And we might have some flashers, but I would hope that the things that you're building into these intersections are strengthening safety enough that we don't have to keep everything we have plus that. So can you do that? And this last, and the second part of that is all the signs up and down the streets. I took pictures along actually the backside of Harts with all those signs. They're also different. So I'm thinking if we in fact change the sidewalks, we might reposition signs to get a little more consistent look of even the what do you call traffic signs that we have. Not our way signs. I love our way signs, So.
We don't have to answer that, but that's something we're all thinking up to. That, and as we move forward, that has to be kept in mind all the way. Okay, Councilmember Fong, and then Renee Morgan.
Thank you, Mayor. Just several comments. First, I want to echo what Robert Storr referenced, which is not to discount the cyclists and their behavior. We know they're going to want to go downtown. They're not going to, we can't force them to stay on Iron Horse or direct them to Iron Horse. They're going to come downtown. The second comment I'll make on that is that, Danville has adopted this age-friendly plan. And it's more than age-friendly, it's also family-friendly plan, which means we're encouraging more, I'll call it non-motorists and pedestrians and cyclists into the town. And so I want to make sure that we align what we've adopted with some of your expectations as to what may make sense for the downtown area as well. The third is parking, and I think everyone has said it. We're going to do a great job of incenting and creating an exciting experience in downtown Danville. Well, with that comes more business, more traffic, and more people, which means we need more parking, not less. And then finally, I think as we take a look at the downtown area, And what's already been said is that the downtown today is looking only at Hearts, and just being mindful and having a look or a peek over our shoulder, making sure that as the downtown area continues to expand, that we have the flexibility to expand accordingly, so that we can take that into account. So whatever we do really complements and is additive to what we've already done.
Great, thanks, Dave.
Mayor, do you want me to respond to perhaps a couple of Councilmember Fong's questions?
Okay, if those are questions, yeah,
Sure.
I thought there were more comments than
Yeah.
questions. So what I don't want to do, I want to make sure of this. This is the opportunity for the council to weigh in. So what I don't want us to do, if we're making comments, to then have those comments answered, even though they're a comment, as opposed to, if you get what I mean? I don't,
Sure, of course.
I don't want to be too heavy-handed, but
No,
I wanna
yeah,
make sure
yeah.
our comments are our comments. And not-
Absolutely. I
Okay,
just wanted to acknowledge that the cycling safety is top of mind. And one of the reasons why the raised tables are introduced is because our senior commission did share with us that it is a very age-friendly, appropriate mechanism to travel throughout the downtown. So wanted to share with you all that that's part of, well, the feedback that we're incorporating.
Great, thank you. And now Renee Morgan, and then Robert, and then back to Karen.
A lot of echo going on in here for some reason. So Andrew, Ty, Jill, obviously Jill, we so appreciate this. This is a start of something great. And I think it's wonderful to see all the ideas that are coming to fruition as far as on paper, and all the feedback that we're getting. I like the idea of the paved crosswalks. I think that definitely makes them pop. It makes people more aware of them. Not sure I particularly like the color, but that's just me. And, we're not there yet. So I'm just saying it's, love the idea. I'm sure we're going to tweak it. And you were talking about expanding the sidewalks or widening the sidewalks as you go. And I looked at the plans. It looks as though you're expanding them with the same paver type look as the crosswalks. And so I don't know cost efficiency if we want to do that or how we're going to do that. Just an observation of mine. Love the monument, the gateway to our community. Really, really cool. And I think we've been talking about that for years. It might be years until we get it still, but at least it's on the paper. Like concepts and all that. The other thing is I wanted to mention, just my last comment would be, the Prospect, we're all talking about it not going one way, but Prospect, when you drive down Prospect right now in that particular area that we're all talking about, it's very narrow. And when cars are parked on both sides, it can get a little tricky getting through there. So I'm happy to see that you're looking at it from a different lens, to see possibly that we might be able to do something different, maybe not eliminate too much parking. But I do like, the concept of doing something a little different, because that area gets a little congested. So I appreciate all the input, the preliminary that we're looking at right now. And thank you for bringing this to us this evening.
Great, thank you, Renee. Vice Mayor Storr.
Great. Andrew and Ty and Jill, wow. This has exceeded my expectations, and I know that this is a vision for the future. So I know there'll be something in the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and I think we're looking out literally the next 5 decades is probably what we're doing here. So I want to make sure that we're looking at all the things into pieces, and I appreciate the way you broke them down into pieces, because that's probably how we're going to be able to afford this, is actually taking on something and completing it. So I don't want to lose sight of the Arts District. It's been a very important component to Front Street. I still like the lights on the trees, but with some of your drawings, those trees go away and we're planting new trees. So we're losing the size of those trees. So I'm not sure if we could even light a 24-inch box tree. That's only about a 12-foot to 14-foot tree, and it's very narrow and very small. But those are the things that we sort of have to factor into this equation here. And I appreciate you looking at the cost of each one of these things. And I don't know. And when you do the cost, just let us know if these are close to reasonable, at the high end of the budget, if you're covering the mark, because that's a big deal as well, because sometimes numbers can be a little bit scary when we have a bunch of them put together like this. We got to find the priorities here. And then, the Starbucks corner, I don't know if you looked at this, but it's just a suggestion. And I know we're in a drought, but fountains on that corner. I know you have a beautiful tree on the corner of Prospect and Hearts, but it always felt like a perfect location for a fountain. And I think we should at least look at that. And then let's be aware that literally every tree in Danville has a memorial plaque at the base, and those will have to be respectfully relocated. But I don't want to lose sight of that either. That's a big deal. But this is impressive. This is a wonderful start. It's a very good beginning, and I can't wait to build from this. This is very exciting.
Newell, you're on mute.
Thank you. I did it. Okay, we're going back to Karen, and then Dave will come back to you, and then I'll wrap
And
up.
I was off mute to tell you that. Thank you.
No, thank you.
So the comments have mostly been made. The one that I'm not seeing, I'm not quite understanding the alternatives on Hearts, on that one section between Prospect and Diablo, but hopefully we'll get more detailed things on that in the future. Because I think Doug Offenhartz was correct when he noted that we hadn't talked about what's happening if the sidewalks are wider. Are we somewhere, what are we doing with the outdoor deck at some point? What are the alternatives? And the second part of that was the gathering places. I think when Dave Fong talked about it being family friendly, is probably not on Hearts, but I'm still looking for some kind of small little playground thing that's also a piece of art, and maybe that's at the Green, but somewhere where families have a little chance for respite that have young kids for a short while. So
Great. And back to Dave.
Yeah, just one comment. The feedback, I think, from the community and from the businesses, and even from the commissions and town council, is that outdoor dining is important. And I just want to bring that up and just make sure that that is part of your consideration as we move forward with a much more firm plan. And how we accommodate for that, I'll kind of defer to you and your expertise there.
Can I maybe just respond on that one comment? Because I think it is important to understand the idea of expanding the sidewalk fully on Hearts is really to provide permanent area for outdoor dining, right? So that the idea there is that rather than needing parklets, you actually just have that as part of the sidewalk. It's built in, easy to use, and really allows anyone to create an outdoor dining area or maybe an outdoor merchandise display.
Well, great, thank you. Well, I will. I'm going to put my comments. I want to echo a couple of high-level things, and then I'm going to be specific. One, first of all, I hope that the community that's listening in that didn't comment will come back and comment to us. Send us your comments, contact any of us as you get time to digest and see these, since we don't have the hard copies ourselves. We got little glimpses, but when it comes to drawings, I got a pretty good photographic memory. Overall, I really like, Angie, what you and the team have done. You've taken on some areas that I didn't think would have had very good solutions. You went back to something most of us had given up on, which I see when we talk about priorities out there are ways. But on Front Street, between Diablo and the first building there, taking out that parking there is probably the best thing we can do. And it has nothing to do with parking. It's just not safe there. When you park up against the guardrail, so the person on the passenger side can't get out. So they have to slide over and then jump out in traffic when it's too narrow. So truthfully, that solves a real problem. And it's also the ugliest part of our downtown. It's just this weeded area that we unfortunately don't get to touch or manipulate. So it would actually give us a beautiful image. It's expensive, but I think it's a good combination. You're using part of the street and a little bit of cantilever. But I think if we really look at it and get our transportation team to work out the exact centers and all that, I think we can find a pretty happy medium to make something that's fairly cost effective. But high level, I think it was wise to look at starting at Hart's Avenue between Prospect and Diablo. Two solutions: either wipe out all the parking or wipe out part of it. What does it do? There's a big cost implication. In either case, it has benefits to everybody. Obviously, if it's only on one side, then that side only gets the benefit. But the ripple effect is the ambiance and the fact that it attracts people. So we should always think about that. Some business owner may say, hey, I didn't get anything in front of my place. Well, guess what? Unless you want to wipe out the whole downtown, that's true. So that statement is going to continue that way. But I think those are good choices. And it doesn't mean because we go with a light parking removal in one, doesn't mean you can't go a little deeper on the other. When you look at Prospect, East Prospect, I will bury you with information about why never to do a one-way street. And there is so much evidence to show it will wipe out half the businesses on the street. And you can argue till you turn blue, but for every argument, I can show you an example why that happened. And while it highlights a point, your other design solutions was still keeping two-way traffic. And as one of our other council members said, that there's a lot of value to that, but you do solve, and that might be a street where removing maybe just parking on the one side, it's a huge benefit to the street on both sides, and it balances that street. As we move back down Hart's between Prospect and Church Street, the light touch in that area probably makes sense. That's got a lot of parking there. That's got a lot of activity. There's a lot of concentration of retail, more than we have elsewhere in town, except on Prospect. The Church Street solution, starting with the court side, it's two-way traffic. The only thing I saw that I would be concerned about was eliminating the parking in there, I think is good, but it narrowed it down on the bridges side as it went back into our public parking lot. For some reason, there's no benefit to narrow it there because we've already have a good connection on the one side. And between the theater and our town meeting hall and Bridges main restaurant, taking it out and closing it off, we're studying. It doesn't help the downtown. It helps the town in our maybe global master plan. So in terms of priority, I would say worth looking at a little more detailed design, but I'd move it away because it's not going to help our businesses right away. East or West Church Street, when you look at that, there's the light touch, remove parking on one side, not the other. Clearly on the restaurant side, there's probably an advantage to remove it there. On the other side, no. And the reason why is it's incrementally doesn't work. And there's a garbage issue, particularly for the restaurants, that we maybe could solve by not having parking on that side. And I think that would be a real win. But on the gateways, as Councilmember Morgan said, I think the gateways are a great idea as long as they're a light touch. And what I mean is they're not these heavy monster bold statements that you go under and it feels like going under a bridge. Danville's gateways that we have that are on buildings, we still have one at the clock tower that hasn't went up. Those are light. They're a little bit more elegant looking. They got strong statements. Maybe the verticals are strong, but the horizontal's light. And it demarks it and it does all those things. But just to be cautious in looking at that. But in terms of the comment also that Dave Fong mentioned, that I agree that there's some opportunity on where we have, particularly on just the east side of Railroad between School Street and all the way up to Prospect, we do have more retail and businesses that front on that. I think it's worth, and again, as Councilmember Storer said, this is a long-term project, some of these things. Some are short-term, and we're going to have to carve out the short-term because we have monies that are set aside that must be spent on this in this very short period of time. I think I would go ahead and look at that east side in a couple of spots, what can we do to help enhance? We know now where those retail environments are, where the restaurants are. What can we do differently? One of them has 16-foot wide sidewalks. You know, what can we do differently there that might help improve? Just having pedestrians in 16 feet doesn't offer a whole lot of the capabilities and the enhancements we're talking about in the other streets. So I think it's worth going through one more design exercise on that and add it to this. And again, it's going to be down the road, but it's a shorter section. But overall, I'm really pleased. I'm worried about parking, but I see some absolutely cool things we can do, even on the lighting. We don't have to wrap the lights around the tree. You know, if you really think about it, in Disneyland, some of the places that are these romantic images, they didn't actually wrap them. They went between the trees. And I think your illustrations of showing the string lighting and things, thematically, you could brand all of the streets, the ones that you've designed so far, brand them that way. And those could be a home run. And they're easy to deal with. Yeah, we got to put new infrastructure to support them. And I get it about not killing the trees, you know, with wrapping them. And the only way you can do that, and Lafayette does it, they pay a fortune to do it only for the holidays. Then they got to take them off. And then they got to buy new lights every year because they damaged them by the time they took them off. It would be great to have a year-round solution that could go through the weather patterns and all of those things. And we don't have to worry that they're only going to be turned on, you know, between November and you know, January. So, you know, if that's what you're looking at, I think you guys have really got a lot of great choices. So the question is now, how do we get to the next step to narrow in on those choices? Because we do have to make some decisions on the first priority list. What are the priority ones? Which direction do we want to go? And then let the design work go to detail work on those. So I put that back to you, Ty and Jill.
Thank you, Mayor. It was a question that we have of the council. We can approach it perhaps one of two ways. One way is that, are there a top 3 projects perhaps that you wish for us to pursue? Or we can approach it a different way, which is there a project that perhaps drops off the list? And one of them that I think I might be hearing is the one-way street on Prospect that might drop off the list, but I sure would love for the council to affirm for me.
Sure. So we're not, this isn't an action item,
Correct.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a thought.
Correct.
So, you know, is there anybody who wants to continue looking at a one-way street on Prospect, for East Prospect? I see none. So there's that. But nobody's questioning the other 2 design solutions, which was about eliminating the parking, and particularly on that north side, and giving it real nice sidewalks. I mean, so that we can do, but there are 4, if you're what you're after, Ty, when you say 3 top projects, you know, with money, without putting money on it, you know, I think we're all looking at Hearts, Church, and Prospect.
Oh,
Right?
wait.
Yeah,
Sorry,
sure.
I
Yeah.
got to add one. I am so impressed with what they drew along Front Street, along the creek, because I thought we'd never get going on anything on there, because I didn't know we could be just talking about the easements as opposed to the properties. And I think that would add safety, get our bikes into town in another way, get more shopper. I thought that was awesome what you were doing along Front Street, and not nearly as expensive as I thought it would be. So
Right. So we're not getting rid of that. Ty was just asking, maybe, given that we only have a matter of months, that project, I know what the numbers are going to be.
2026.
Yeah. Well, it might be 8 years away to actually finish that project.
Yeah.
But what would be the top 3?
Yeah,
Do we have a consensus to, is it the Hearts, Prospect, Church? Is that our focus? Not to take the other ones off. It's just that in terms of raising priority, Councilmember or Vice Mayor Storr?
Yeah, no, I think we're going down the right road, just trying to figure out the priorities. But I know I heard that there's still things on the list that weren't as high a priority, that may be the low-hanging fruit that we should probably at least listen to what the presentation may be on it. We didn't hear that tonight. We only heard the big picture items, and the big picture item have a gigantic price tag. Smaller items we could get done sooner and quicker, and show the downtown community that, hey, we can actually get something done in a shorter period of time. God, nobody wants to hear that things could take 8 years. So,
Right. So like,
if that's something we could look at, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, like lighting, for example. I think we all kind of thought, boy, a lighting solution, and obviously you have to be careful that you don't do something that we come back and have to redo later. What kind of lighting solutions can we look at that bring those festive ideas that you've illustrated and do those as a high priority? And because all the other ones are closing off parking and things like that can all be done, but those are 12, 14-month projects once they have been designed, bid, awarded, and then phase them in so we don't ruin downtown businesses. Because we could not, I don't know if you remember, if you were here long enough, we have done projects downtown that, wow, it had big impacts on businesses. Detrimental impact to success. So we have to be very cautious to take small bits and pieces, but there are ones that maybe we can get to right away. Are there other ones that people want to suggest that are easier ones that we can do right away? Dave?
Yeah, and I might as well be the elephant in the room, but outdoor dining, our restaurants are still looking for guidance on what to do going forward between now and January 2023. And I would like to have a solution so that they can begin and we can begin investing in them on the longer term. So that's my comment on a priority that I think is important.
So what that means is eliminating parking. So the council would have to make a decision to eliminate parking and then also work out a rental, some nexus on behalf of the public taxpayers of how to recoup monies and investment for those who would then have rights based on a lease agreement to use public property. So we'd have to go through that pathway to work out those details.
No, I understand the complexity. It's just I think we've had long discussions about outdoor dining, and I think our restaurants are looking for guidance from us.
Right, and what I don't hear is, the reality is, yes, we all want to accomplish that, but it really rests with us as a council to make some big decisions, and those decisions is on the 3 streets we're looking at. How much parking do we want to get rid of? I'm not sure I personally could make that decision tonight, just seeing this for the first time and only seeing it by memory and not being able to study and walk and also hear more from the property owners now that they know what's being proposed. So what is our next step to get to that point of capturing that input and then getting us to a point where we can start to say, this is what we're willing to do? So I put it back to you.
No, what 3 streets? I'm sorry.
Hearts, Prospect, and Church.
So Hearts would go down to Diablo Road approximately.
Yeah, I'm saying Hearts, the study area that they're looking at. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's going to have a high impact on the ambience of Danville, including dining, but the Hearts is just critical. It's what's going to bring people here.
Yeah.
So if I might suggest, Mayor, council members, perhaps what we can do is to take your top 3 priorities plus the vice mayor's suggestion of the low-hanging fruit of lighting. We'll come back at your next study session if we have room on that agenda, flesh out some of those concepts with costs, constructability constraints,
perfect,
perhaps even timing. And then that will enable the council to make a more informed, provide some more informed direction as to what we should focus on in the downtown master plan, and 2 paralleling actions in addition to the downtown master plan. I'm hearing, depending on what we choose in the next study session, we can kind of fast track some of those projects so we can take advantage of ARPA funding. And perhaps, I think I heard this, is there a desire to consider what it might mean to provide more parklet direction for our restaurant community?
Well, I think what we've all been dancing around is what would, pose it as a question. Given what SWA has proposed, and when you do remove parking, because they happen to do it in most of those restaurant areas, that it would allow some of those spaces to be leased and to be added as a rental public space basis, that I think the question is, can we do that? If so, where would they occur? How would we go through the mechanics of making that an option, which would mean from the legal point of view, our taxpayers, what's that relationship to take public property and allow it to be used on a rental basis for that? Because as we know over time, there might not always be a restaurant there. Our restaurants have moved and we have more coming. So, how do we do that? And the reality is not every restaurant is going to get one. That's just the reality.
But we do know one thing that's probably pretty sure, that we extend a sidewalk. Somebody will say, if they're close to a restaurant, I certainly would. Geez, I'd sure love to put some tables out there. What would it take to do that?
Right.
So
that's
I think
the
what
question.
Andrew should do is factor that into the thinking, because as we all know, that's going to be the response from downtown, which is wonderful.
Right.
But the advantage of what you said, Robert, was if you expand the sidewalk, then when some other restaurant comes in, they could use it. But when you take the street, that's a very different answer.
Yeah, no, agreed.
So Ty, when you say the next study session, which specific one do you mean?
Oh, yes, that's right. I'm referring to one in June.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm
looks
referring
like
to
we're going to be finished with the budget at our next study session. But what I think what would help all of us is that if we don't get a digital copy of the presentation tonight.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Is
So,
there a chance at our third budget study session that there might be some time in the afternoon or in the late morning to take this on?
Well, what we're talking about is, since we're probably not going to use the fourth one that we set aside, we could use that study session for this purpose. Joe,
Let me get my oar in the water here.
Those are interviews.
You have a third one next week to complete your review of the capital improvement program. And in any case, I think asking the consultant to come back in less than a week isn't terribly feasible. You have a consultant, or you have commission interviews on May 31st. So we're really talking about your study session on June the 14th.
correct.
yeah, that's fine. I mean, I think that's great, because I think we want to hear from other folks to be able to weigh in, and plus everybody will get to look at plans as well. So if we post these plans. So is that enough from, I mean, we've given you a lot. As Ty, you feel confident to be able to go to get us to that study session now?
I really think so. I mean, I think the council has given us some great feedback and we have something to work off of.
Yeah, well, this is exciting. And we've all been chomping, and, with some of us, we're all prepared to jump in. But the fact is I think we were all pleasantly surprised, but we all saw things that we could see really going forward and enhancing. So.
Yeah, and I think we should include the discussion at the farmer's market each week, and bring some materials so that we can actually have a conversation down there about aspects of the projects.
Yeah. So Andrew, to you and your team, we just want to make sure, no matter what you're hearing, a big thank you, and we're really pleased with the direction you guys are going, and we look to seeing you back on June 14th.
Well, thank you. Really appreciate the feedback.
Awesome. Okay, great. And Ty and Jill, it's almost breakfast time. It's 5 a.m. You maybe get two. Oh, God bless you. I can't believe you're sitting up. But thank you for this. You guys have just done an outstanding job to get us here in a very, very short period of time. So great team. You guys picked the right consultant to help you out. We appreciate all your guidance and all the input that we've gotten thus far.
Thank you.
All right. Was that the bell ringing? It's 5 a.m. No.
Cathedral.
It is. Okay. Oh my gosh, I've lost the agenda I've been writing on. Okay. We are
council reports.
Yes, thank you. We're down to item number 10, 10.1. Are there any town council reports? I do not have any. Okay, seeing none, I see everybody shaking their hands. heads. And by the way, just to answer a question, Nicola did text me that our public statement is on our Facebook page. So just to let you know, she confirmed that about an hour ago. So with that, everybody, thank you so much. And to staff, thank you all for really a great meeting and all the information tonight. This meeting is adjourned. Marie, thank you so much.
Welcome.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Have a great night.